Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. And I'm your host, Zach Cherry. With me, as always, is...
It's not really about numbers, Charles. It's about passion and originality. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we're talking about Chucky Season 3, a.k.a. the final season. Show is canceled. This premiered October 4th, 2023. A little sad you didn't do a Tiff quote there.
Well...
Chucky is my thing. You got it?
Well, I thought it actually felt like the line that I used was a kind of befitting one to this season. Just gonna say that for now. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, I would rather you say cards on the table and you just say how you really feel.
It's complicated, but this was rough. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is definitely, like, I love the Child's Play / Chucky franchise, as do you. Like, this is one of our big things, obviously the other being Scream, and it's almost like I've always said, like, Chucky can do no wrong. And not that season 3 of Chucky is bad, like there's still good to be found in it, but I think that this is a far cry from where the series started with season 1. And we've already covered the first 2 seasons. We've also covered films 1 up to Seed of Chucky
5.
At this point. Yeah. So we'll probably, I don't mean, if you're up for the challenge, we can rank. But this, for me, is definitely, and this is not including the remake with the AI Chucky, because I just don't count that at all. But this is probably the lowest point for me of the Chucky series. And I'm really interested to discuss this with you and figure out why that is, and kind of where they went wrong, and if that is sort of the impetus for its cancellation, or maybe there's other reasons that you might know about. But I do know that Don Mancini has said that he's already working on, I guess, the next either film or iteration or wherever it goes next, and that's the saving grace here, is that, like, no matter like what happens, or if something feels like it's hit a wall, we always know that Chucky will come back. He always comes back. So I think that we'll be safe. This is not the end, even though it leaves it on a very underwhelming note, which we'll get to.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots to discuss, so we got to get to that.
Yeah.
But...
All right, well, before we continue on with everything, just a little bit of housekeeping. So if you've been listening to The Cherry Picker for a while, or if you are new here, you can support us over at my Patreon account. That is www.patreon.com/ZachCherry, ZACKCHERRY. And if you are supporting at any tier, you'll get early access to all of our regular episodes. And if you are supporting at the Freddy Krueger tier, you'll get access to The Cherry Picker After Dark, which is the Patreon exclusive that we do once a month. This month, we're gonna piss a lot of people off, straying a little far away from horror. But Edward, what are we talking about? And this is gonna be next week.
Your absolute favorite, burlesque.
Burlesque, which, I mean, kind of scary. I feel like if Scream 2, like when Randy or Ghostface like asks Randy what your favorite scary movie is, and he says Showgirls, if it was like maybe 20 years later, he might have said Burlesque. Absolutely frightening. But no, we talk a lot of shit about Burlesque, and good and bad. And I think that we're just like, let's just talk about it and alienate everybody, and probably the Patreon supporters who are already supporting here. Which let me just shout them out, the top tiers here. So for the Michael Myers Tier supporters, thank you to Kyle Beard, Maxime Rivest, Ellie Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horace Slut95, Traj125, Bruce the Genetic, Jackhammer Rando, Gary Blasick, Michael Boswell, and then the Ghostface tier supporters, thank you to Eric Champney, Sam Levy, Daniel Saturn, Baby Cool, Garrison Nichols, and Craig Lynn. Thank you very much to all of you all for all the support you give us.
Thank you.
You're putting our kids through college. You're putting bread on our table.
Okay.
Okay, firstly, well, we got to do a premise, and, you know, as has been tradition, I take on that responsibility whenever it's a Chucky thing, so we do it in the Chucky voice, and we didn't really prepare that, so I'm just going to read whatever's on the back of this. But since we have this, the Blu-ray of season 3, which both of us have, if you are listening and not watching the YouTube version, I guess where can you watch Chucky? Where can you find the Blu-ray? What's the deal here? What's going on?
Well, you can certainly purchase the Blu-ray, or you can stream it with the subscription off of Peacock. There you go. Clean and done.
Very
Simple.
easy. Thank you. All right. The country is chucked. That's cute. That's what it says on the... Chucky is back with a vengeance in season 3 of the hit series from Chucky franchise creator Don Mancini. This time, the infamous killer doll has managed to find his way inside the White House as the new favorite toy of the president's young son. With Chucky threatening to wreak havoc in America's highest office, Jake, Devin, and Lexi must travel to the nation's capital and somehow find a way inside the world's most secure house to thwart Chucky again before it's too late.
And there's a bonus feature, deleted scenes.
Very nice, thank you. It's kind of like going like all of Chucky's moods or modes.
Yeah,
where it fell
that's
into
what
that.
you gotta do, just to switch it up.
Yeah.
Break the monotony up. Yeah, the deleted scenes aren't anything special either. That's why they're not.
There's one where with the foster / teacher, whatever, which is like I wasn't even really paying attention because I was just like, that's nice for it. But it was like an extra moment of her, I guess, just talking with Lexi about Caroline or whatever, and just like this, I mean, probably more relevant than most of the shit they kept in there. But yeah, I don't think that, like, there's no commentaries, there's no nothing like that, which is strange. You would think that Don Mancini would, you know, be all over that. And that was the same thing for seasons 1 and 2, I believe. Like they weren't really stacked.
I think there was a featurette, like a couple interviews, but all like, you know, really, really condensed for the first season, if I remember correctly. But yeah, no, nothing really all that extensive. So who knows? I mean, we have the rest of our lives to watch Don Mancini speak at cons about what went down, because I know it's going to be a big point of inquiry for fans of the franchise, for from here to the end of time.
And there's also I believe there's a documentary on Shudder right now. Is it called like Doc of Chucky? Is that the one?
Oh, I don't even have Shudder these days.
Oh, really?
So I don't even know. I'm behind the times.
Yeah, I'll have to. You know, here I am just speaking facts like they're true. I mean, it might be, but I don't know. But yeah, I think that there's you know, if you want more extensive information about, I would imagine that would include the television series as well. But you know, you can look for something like that. But you went ahead. And because you do this, I don't, but you listen to our previous episodes. So you re-listen to seasons 1 and 2. So you have, I guess, a better understanding of where we've been at. Because I'm just sort of like reaching into the past, like I guess back to like 2021, and like how did we feel about the show then? And I know that like season 1, I really did love it. Yes. I feel that it channeled like all the best parts of Chucky, and like just like things in the movie or the movies. There's a lot of Child's Play too in there, and it definitely was very nuanced. I think that they explored a lot of new and interesting things. We saw kind of like flashbacks into Charles Lee Ray's life, starting when he was a child and going all the way up until like the Tiffany introduction era, where the characters first met, not when we were first introduced to Tiffany in Bride of Chucky time. But I get so much enjoyment for, like, even thinking back to it, there was so much in there. Like, I really liked the cast that they had for season 1 too, and that's not to say anything negative about the cast that has been there since, but I remember with season 2, it kind of it leans more into the camp, and that's not a bad thing. We love camp. We love camp with Chucky. My memory of season 2 was that there was a lot of start-stopping storylines. It felt like something would be introduced in an episode, and then like either by the end of the episode or the beginning of the next episode, it would be resolved and we would be onto a new thing. And it felt like there were no stakes. There was no overarching story thread that really kind of like, in a way I think of, as an example, just because it's fresh in my mind, White Lotus, and obviously Chucky is not White Lotus, but this is 8 episodes of a television show, and it's just sort of like building up to something, and at the end, all of the story threads that have been present all throughout are kind of wrapped up in a bow and handed to you. And I feel like with the way that season 2 went, it was just sort of like, it wasn't that. It was just sort of like, and here's a finale, which just felt very incidental. And I feel that with season 3, it kind of felt the same way, like where season 1 did feel like it was like an amalgamation of everything coming together and wrapped up nicely. With season 3, it just sort of, again, like a lot of like start-stop storylines, a lot of like overarching storylines that weren't developed very well or thought out, and just felt like padding, and just like overall kind of focusing on the least interesting aspects of the show.
Well, okay, so we both responded really positively to the first season, and had notes, but here and there, like Kyle of it all and everything. But then season 2 came, and I think I did respond to it more positively than you did, or at least more enthusiastically to the points that were like in big block letters. I was just kind of like, okay, I don't know, now I have no idea what direction the show's going, and I enjoyed the ride a great deal. Like, so I didn't watch when they were airing, but I remembered seeing kind of like people sharing in their stories and everything like that on Instagram about it started strong at the beginning, and then I started to notice it just kind of taper off. Especially because I think it got broken in half. Like, didn't they? Yeah,
so the writer's strike is responsible for that. And that is absolutely probably a detriment to the season, because by the time that happened, they'd already got like the 4 episodes done. So there was sort of like a mid-season finale, if you will. And I mean, like with 4 episodes, it's not like you're building up a lot of momentum. So I think that definitely probably hurt the development process of season 3.
Yeah, because basically, like, I mean, I literally just posted like my television screen of like little old Chucky, just saying homework, like earlier this past week, and got a lot of, responses to it, like a significant amount, where I was like, oh, a lot of people jumped on this one. So people are responding to it, but I didn't remember seeing a lot of just kind of like celebration of it. It didn't seem like it was an event that people were being encouraged to gravitate to. If I had to kind of like nutshell it or big picture, what I think the basic problem for me of this particular season was, just taking the season as it is without any kind of like, news context or anything like that, just in terms of it's a series, what is it like writing through it? It felt to me by the time I reached the end of it, like it was like not storyboarded as like a shots list, but storyboarded as far as like a writer's room, like the way that like oftentimes if you're in a writer's room, there will be a board and they will have each episode, and each episode will have like little stanzas or paragraphs consisting of the action that's going to happen, so you can kind of track visually the projection of like each A story, B story, C story, and if there's any kind of like little special gags you want, where you can like put them in and everything like that, and what's going to make sense, and that's what gets discussed a great deal. For me, it felt like they spent way too much time of the season, just of the bulk of the season, stuck in the fucking White House. And so that by the time we finally got to, I wouldn't even say like the second to last episode, I'd say the last episode, I was like, well, why wasn't more of this stuff in the finale built in a little bit earlier, and we could really explore the possibilities and have fun, because there are so many inventive, funny things that happened that were all kind of jam-packed into that finale that sadly, this is the season that had me kind of like just like sitting there with my leg, with a nervous leg bounce, you know, like I was just kind of waiting, because I felt like we just kept getting Gil Bellows and the First Lady every time they'd just be alone in a room talking about like, well, this is why you have to keep it quiet, and well, this is why you have to go along with it. Well, I won't go along with it. Well, you're gonna have to. And then she goes along with it, and then rinse repeat. And I was like, I haven't found out anything interesting about either of you in the last 2 or 3 episodes. And it's an 8-episode season. When are we going to get to, why am I not watching something about Tiffany? Why am I not watching something about Nika? Why am I not watching something about Gigi? Like, here we've got like these incredible characters who we set up. I mean, granted, Gigi left in season 2, but we know that they're still largely part of this universe. And I was just kind of like, why do I care about the president and his kids and all that?
Yeah, I think that this definitely felt the furthest removed from Chucky. Like, I'm getting, I've never seen The West Wing, but like, you know, like just like political drama. I'm getting like,
it looked like those sets.
I'm getting like 24. I'm just like, it's the thing that, okay, so Chucky, I mean, Child's Play, we've talked about, it's never really scary. I think that there's definitely within the franchise moments of tension and suspense that have been executed really well. But I think Chucky always does best when it's leaning into the comedy, obviously, and also the intrigue. And I felt like the comedy wasn't really as present. I think the comedy's there when Jennifer Tilly is there, absolutely. But there wasn't a whole lot of intrigue, and it felt like, you know, at the beginning, it's like, yeah, we're in the White House and why, but we weren't getting to the answers quickly enough. And by the time we were, it was just kind of like, that's it. We took like a long route to get to nothing. So that's kind of largely a lot of my problem. I think that at this point, I know that we talked about Devin and Jake in season 2 and how it's like this relationship is just flatlined. The thing is, like in season 1, it was intriguing because it's like, you know, they're coming together for the first time. There's like this element of it, like they don't know each other. They're sort of discovering the feelings, and Chucky's there is like, there's like this conflict that's keeping them apart. And now they're together. And like in season 2, and it's just like, now that they're together, it's like, do you guys even like get along? Is there anything that like there, it's almost like there's conflict that's being manufactured that does not feel authentic to what their relationship is. And it kind of vacillates between either that or just them being all lovey-dovey and like, oh my God, I have the most handsome boyfriend, and it's just like, ew, gross. I mean, not you know, not that I have a problem with like young gay love or anything like that, but it's just like, okay, like pump the brakes on it. Like you're making us look bad. It's a little too schmaltzy. And I felt
I agree with that.
Yeah, like I felt like there's nothing interesting about them. It's almost like maybe what the series should have been is like Chucky, Tiffany, like all the characters that you're talking about, Nika, Gigi were like the constants, and then it was sort of like the series where you have like the Kincaids and the Tillys and the Barclays or whoever,
100%.
The Pierces just sort of like cycled like different families, because it's like I think that if season 1 had been the end to like the Jake Devon's saga, I was going to say Devon Sawa, the Devon Sawa saga, which is another thing we'll get to. I would have been happy with that. I would have been content, but just sort of like they kept beating this into the ground, and I felt that, yeah, the kids were the weakest part, and on top of that, Lexi was really weak this season too. And Lexi, like obviously we really loved Lexi in season 1. Season 2, she was going through a lot, but she was still kind of like, of the three of them, like the saving grace of just like, okay, at least we have Lexi and her internalized conflict here. And this is probably my biggest issue with the kids this season, because it's the whole through line of them is like, where's Caroline? Where is Caroline? And that was the only question that was ever asked. Now, at the end of season 2, they're all there in the house when she reveals herself to be this psychopath, and which was weird at the time, because Jennifer Tilly's there, or sorry, Tiffany, Miss Valentine, we should appropriately call her, had the knife to the kid's throat, and this kid's like not even reacting to it. She's just talking about how, like, that mother downstairs, like, that's not my real mother, and I'm evil, and yada, yada, yada. And even Tiffany's just like, who is this kid? But I'm going to keep holding the knife here, but I'm going to go along with it. Yeah. And they're witnessing this. They're, like, hearing the words that are coming out of Caroline's mouth. And at the very least, in this season, there could have been a conversation like, was she brainwashed? Like, why is she like that? Is there, like, even to someone have a discussion with Lexi and just be like, we have to consider the possibility that Caroline is just an evil child, and do we, like, what happens next? There's no conversations about it. All they're ever talking about is like, we have to find Caroline, and it's like, we know where Caroline is. Like, if there was like a mystery as to, like, we didn't, but we see that she's with Chucky, and then who knows where she's being kept, I guess with Wendell or whatever.
Uncle Wendell.
The character is, but it's just it's kind of one of those things where we're already several steps ahead of these characters, and nothing is interesting, because we know that, like, finding Caroline is not the answer. Or the question. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with Caroline? Right. It should be the question, and that's never asked, and it kind of makes the kids stupid. And that's the thing. It's just like, they came off stupider than ever because they keep making the same mistakes. It's like, let's go to the White House. Like, this can't be a trap at all. And if it's a trap, we'll be ready. But it's like, are you ready? Because, like, you just keep walking into these situations that you're not prepared for. And you would, like, they even have their conversations. They're like, we're the final girls. We're the Jamie Lee fucking Curtis. And it's just like,
remember, we're the heroes.
Yeah. And it's just like, but you're not smart. Like, you're not growing from your mistakes. You're
not going to win just by telling yourself we're the heroes, so we're going to win. That's not what heroes do.
Yeah. Like... So yeah, like, largely this is, and then there's things out of convenience where they're like, oh, let's just look online and magically find, oh, this is the spiritual whatever. We'll have to go see him and find out information. And it felt like it was very written. It's just like, we're going to take them wherever. This thing between Lexi and the first son and all that, and yeah, you're right. Like, if it wasn't that, then we were in the White House, and we were like, thank God for, I mean, like, and I will give them credit, Devon Sawa and oh my gosh, what's her name? She played the nun last time, and she was also in Hannibal.
Here, I'll look it up. Keep talking.
As, like, this time she's playing the first lady, and, like, they're great. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, there's, like, the circumstances in which they're in, of, like, where she's having the conversations and she's like, we can't tell anyone, is pretty flat. But, like, I'm enjoying the novelty of, like, these two are, like, these anthology characters in a way that they get killed off and then they come back and they're playing, like, other people. But yeah, we're stuck in the White House with them, and it's just like, if we're not with the kids, we're with the White House, and it's just like, it's a lot of that. So with the little time we do spend with Jennifer Tilly, it's like, oh my God, please, more of this.
Well, so the actress's name is Laura Jean Chorostecki, and it's okay, so there's a lot to address. In terms of Lexi, yeah, I agree with you. I think that she was done really, really dirty this season, because she was arguably, I mean, she was our cherry on top, or would have been our cherry on top. I don't remember if we were already doing it.
I think
when
we had
covered season 1.
Nika. No, we weren't doing the cherry on top yet, but we retroactively.
Yeah, but she would have been for season 1. She would have absolutely been for season 1. Because we did say she was our favorite character.
Yeah.
But so you take this incredibly interesting character who's experienced this incredible twist, and we even get to learn about like her perspective about her relationship to Junior and all of that, and then it got what's the word I'm looking for? I guess condensed a little in like season 2, but she was still her, but she was dealing with, I know you really didn't like her dealing with the addiction and everything, but I mean, I remember thinking like, again, with that kind of like Halloween 2018 mindset of just kind of like, well, there's always room to do more with her later. Like, I kind of like seeing her vulnerable, and if she's immobilized now, then maybe there's an opportunity to get her really mobilized later. And they didn't do that. They went in the exact opposite direction with season 3 and made her a character whose sole mission, and this should have come, I think the intention on the part of the writers was to make it come across as noble, because she's a hero, that like she's just got her eye on the prize and she's going to do anything she can to get her get her sister back or whatever, completely ignoring everything that you said about the end of season 2 and about my sister's a psycho, and she's happily a psycho. She's volunteering, she's been recruited, and she's zis boom ba about it, and she was always weird anyway. Like, when is Lexi going to look at that? But okay. But in addition to that, then like they try to develop this relationship with Grant, the first kid, the first son or whatever, firstborn son, and she's sitting there like developing quasi feelings for him that we're supposed to believe are real. And it's not like I don't believe they are, but I also don't see anything really that are not really based on anything outside of the same thing that they based Jake and Devin's relationship on, which is like, we have shared trauma. You're the only person who kind of understands how fucked up it is to lose shit, so that's why I'm with you. And I feel like the interesting thing to do with Jake and Devin would have been to get them to actually start asking questions about like, is that enough to keep us together? And I think we were even talking about that at the end of season 2. I wasn't as bothered by them as you were in season 2, but I do remember by the end of it going like, guys, would you just talk? Come on. They were still kind of like, I think, the weakest part of that season for me, and then ended up being the weakest part of that season, because it was, I went from seeing I can't remember who was leaving who, but whoever was going off with their foster family, getting out of the car and then running back, and the two of them kissing in the middle of the street and everything, going like, oh, young gay love, to the end of season 2, going like, guys, like, it's not love. You're in high school. What do you know about love? Just get over it and move on, or see other people and come back together and be that person for each other in your lives. So, I mean, the fact that we have now not just one kind of like rickety, not kind of fragile, in its basis, like love story between two young people. Now we have another one between Lexi and Grant, and I felt for Grant. There were things about him where I was just kind of like when he bought up the whole store or whatever, when they all went to that coffee house or whatever to meet him, and he was just kind of hell-bent on impressing her, and that was one thing. That was where I got Lexi. It was just, and it wasn't scripted, it was just the way she was playing it, the way the actress was playing it, just sitting there kind of watching him try to impress her with all the shit that he has, and she's just kind of listening like, oh, okay, and like, I'm trying to keep you happy, so I'm going to smile and go, wow. But in reality, in my head, I'm thinking, wow, what a shallow piece of shit this kid is. He really has no idea how to be a human being. Yeah. And then, so I mean, even if that could have been written in a little bit more, instead of just like, I was faking it, but kind of, just to kind of get you, but I do care about you. And I'm just kind of like, it's just so oversimplified, and I agree with you. It feels not only written, but it feels like underwritten. Yeah. Like, these are concepts that were never really delved into, and I don't know if the strike affected that, but again, because they're so simple and because they're so drawn out and because we spend so much time just kind of like moving through these similar cycles, like for most of the season, our young characters are just moving through spaces looking for Chucky. You know, and just comparing, like, let's all set our watches, okay, go, and then they all just wander around for a while, they don't find him, and then end of the episode, we go into the next episode, they're walking somewhere else looking for him, and it's just like, oh, okay. So we couldn't have like condensed this and just kind of maybe done like a montage of them looking, you know, instead of just, it feels like the intention was maybe for like a slow burn, like a low flame over a long period, so then it's bubbling over by the end, which I think actually it kind of worked, because by the end of the season I do have to say I was hooked back in. I didn't like everything, but I was like, okay, now we got a show. But I wanted to address also just in terms of like, I don't know, I feel like it opened and there were questions, because like we're in the White House and I'm like, okay, why are we here? What's the end game, Chucky? And then we sit and wait, and then we find out what the end game is. And I agree with you, it's a little anticlimactic, and I felt like there was a point that I don't even know what was trying to be made about the irony, I guess, of transparency in a political regime. But I don't even know what the argument was. Like, are we arguing why it can work or why it can't work or why it won't work? Because, I mean, the only thing I could really kind of see that I thought, okay, that's an interesting concept. I feel like I did that most of this season. I just kind of said like, okay, I see this on paper. I can hear someone in the room having this idea, and then it's never developed, is like, okay, Chucky in the White House. The only thing I could really kind of find as a parallel to that was Child's Play 3, just in the sense that, like, you know, we've got a governmental institution and there's this complex infrastructure, and Chucky is like the monkey wrench that's thrown into the works that fucks it all up. We have, you know, law and order, we have rules, we got by the book, we have a way of doing things, rigidity, and that's that's the line you got to toe here. And then Chucky comes in, and all of a sudden there's lies, and there's miscommunications, and there's murder, and there's laughs also, there's fun. And that was another thing I kept feeling while I was watching it. I was like, okay, this is neither scary, doesn't have to be, but it's neither fun either, you know? It wasn't scary, fun, or interesting for a lot of the season.
No, I think that's a good way to sum it up. And yeah, just in terms of the character relationships and where they go, a lot of them felt very unearned. There's this whole arc, well, I don't know if it's whole arc, but just this sort of like mini arc where the two of them consummate their love, and it just sort of like, it comes out of nowhere, and it's just sort of like, it's like we're doing it just because we can do it. And I feel like, you know, that's also could be the case, you know, like if to say what is the reason for the whole White House backdrop. And it felt like, you know, maybe Don Mancini was trying to make a political statement here. But it's just like, it's so lost in this mire of nonsense that it's like, it doesn't really register of you know what it is. And I think that a good story is going to have sort of like we're going to see two sides of a conflict here. And we're not really seeing it. We're just sort of seeing Chucky come in and, you know, wanting to, I guess ultimately, and it's just like a very last minute decision that he makes, is to just like blow up the world, which, and I, you know, when I saw this for the first time, it reminded me of Buffy in season 2, the season 2 finale, where Angel or Angelus and Drusilla are like, you know, do the Acathla or whatever, the opening up the demon that's going to just bring upon the apocalypse and everyone dies. And that's where Spike makes the decision to mutiny and join forces with Buffy, because like his argument is that like he loves the world, you know, it's full of people who are little Happy Meals walking around with legs. And it just, I get that Chucky is like dying or whatever the situation here is, and you know, it's kind of like go big or go home, but it's sort of like would make me think that Chucky's argue like he would never do that. He would be like, no, I want to preserve humanity because there's too much fun to be had within it. Like he wouldn't want to just like start World War III for the sake of just like being destructive. So
prior to that decision, he actually makes a point about how he's holding a gun and how he doesn't like guns because they're so impersonal. And we've even speculated about this before, about like the kill, why he wouldn't just, from the first movie, like why he wouldn't just make a voodoo doll of everybody just so, and we'll get to that. But anyway, we'll just get a voodoo doll to like kill all of his victims that way. And it's because it's about the gratification and the intimacy of the kill, seeing the fear of your victim in your eyes, especially once he was a doll, it's like, oh my God, and I get to freak them out because I'm like a moving active doll killing them, laughing at them. I like this.
Or the line from Child's Play 2 where he's like, there's nothing like a good strangulation to get the circulation going.
So for him to, I mean, and admittedly the line is introduced, I understand, with the gun, for him to say like, but you make do with what you can or whatever. And it's a reason why he needs to go out and shoot all these people to take him down underneath the White House. Okay, I get it. But then like the whole motive for all of this is Tiffany on the phone call with him, or I was like, oh wow, look, I'm watching characters who I care about actually communicate thoughts and feelings to each other, where I'm like, oh, I give a shit and I know where they're coming from. How about that? But Tiffany just tells him to go big or go home. And I thought, okay, maybe we got something started here. And then I find out he's doing just the same thing that, you know, guys I don't trust in DC are gonna do. And I'm like, okay, this is where as a horror fan, I'm gonna take offense, because I like to believe that the slashers we worship are different than cold-blooded human beings who have no problem extinguishing life. You know, there's something else that happens. There's a theatricality, or it depends on who you're talking about, but usually there's a theatricality, there's a mystique, there's a humor, there's a glint in the eye, there's a star quality, there's something that feels kind of like undeniably the thing that we all fear, the thing in the darkness that you can't quite make out, or the thing that we all can make out and know exactly what it is, but nobody wants to talk about it, that our slashers represent to us. And that's what makes them powerful, but that's also what makes us imbue them with a kind of respect, enough respect to keep a franchise going, where they're usually the sole continual line throughout, you know, the entire thing. We go to a Friday the 13th movie to watch Jason do something, or in the future to see his mother do something. Yeah, we're all interested in like the stories of these people who, for better or worse, were kind of like, you know, rejected by society because they didn't fit, whether it's because of what they did or whether it's because of just who they were. And we're just kind of watching them reclaim that power, and watching him do it in the least interesting way by waging World War III made me drop my notebook one more time and go, I don't need this.
Well, I think the thing is that there's so many ideas that are going on here that just don't mesh. And now I love the novelty of Chucky dying, like, of old age, like just sort of succumbing to that, because it kind of harkens back to Child's Play original, where it's just like he's becoming like it, just like bonding with the doll, and it's becoming, you know, flesh and blood. And I have no doubt that like if that was the direction that the series would have gone, that even if Chucky went inside a doll, he would eventually become like a living organism and would die just as the same as like humans do. So I felt like that was a way to sort of explore that idea. But this whole thing about like going to the White House because it's like he needed to reverse this curse and like get back on good graces with Damballa, and had to kill like 6 people inside the White House and stuff like that. Like it kind of goes off course, because I would think that if Chucky is trying to get into the White House, there's 2 things that, you know, could have happened off the top of my head. One, he sort of, just by the very nature of like that he's this doll that can kind of like get into all of these rooms that only like government officials can do, like he can somehow tamper with things and, you know, get in people's ears or sabotage things or make people look bad or get fired or whatever, or somehow dictate presidential decisions. Or he could very well possess the body of the president, and suddenly like Chucky is now inside Devon Sawa as the president here, and like making presidential decisions that way if they're wanting to go this route of like to do this political thing. So it's just like him being in the White House feels very incidental to everything going on here. Like the White House of it all is just like, it's kind of pointless. And it's, you know, other than maybe like the episode where, okay, we're going to hit the button and blow up everywhere in the North Pole and start World War III. It really has no bearing on anything. Another thing that really pissed me off, and I feel like we're just shitting on Chucky season 3 here, but the fact that
I have good things. I have good things that I'll say.
I have good things too, but they're very isolated to other aspects. But the fact that all of these kids are like major influencers now, and we see that because like you know, when they're all like on their phone and Grant is like, oh, I noticed that you don't follow me or whatever. He's, by virtue of being the president's son, has like 1 million followers or whatever, because it's like this insight. That makes sense. But like we see like Lexi is just like, she's doing these TikToks. Like they're all TikTokers, and they're like, they have this big following, and everyone knows about Chucky or their story. Devon's podcasting again. Like there wasn't there this big to-do at the end of season 2 where Jake bought him that podcast kit, and he was like, I don't like that, I don't do that. So it's just like there's no consistency, but apparently they're doing it now. Like they're big in whatever field they're in. People are following them, and like Devon is still like he's going to the White House with sort of like, I guess, the goal of recording Chucky to just show the world that Chucky it's real. And at this point it's like that, like with AI and deep fake and whatever, it's just like, I think that's already been established within the franchise that like Chucky is invincible in terms of like exposing him.
And see, but if they could have even just planted that seed. I feel like somebody mentioned it at one point, but then it just kind of didn't go anywhere. And there he is still, Devon in the fucking Oval Office or wherever the fuck they were, just like sitting there Oh no, they were in the Situation Room, recording Chucky standing on the table, like with his hand on the button or whatever, talking into the gun in his hand, and Jake has the pizza cutter, whatever. But it was at that point where he's like recording him, and I'm just kind of like, well, what was the point of this? If at some point they could have said, okay, so the point is that what we need to do is get him in, at least in the open, where people like can see him in plain view, and where, you know, like, because it's harder to deep fake something live, you know, like if we can just get a bunch of people to see it just to expose him, then maybe we'll have him that way, or just abandon it altogether. Go like, that was a bad idea, so all we have is each other. We're the core 4, you know, even though there's only 3, and we'll go in and we'll take him down on our own, and we'll find a way. But I mean, again, the whole thing, it just feels so incredibly sloppy. Like even you bringing up the White House and like the motive to like get them there and everything like that. I get the joke when little Caroline's standing there with Chucky outside the gate, and I'm wondering, because I lost the thread at that point. They had gone to the Amity house to try and, you know, find what's the most evil place where we can go. It's not evil enough. And then they're like, I thought, actually, I was like, oh, this could be fun. How many other, like, franchises are we going to hop into? Are we going to go to the Elm Street house, the Myers house? Are we going to go to the Overlook Hotel? That's pretty good. No, we're going straight to the White House for a joke. And I didn't laugh. I was like, oh, this is why we're here. I think that was, what was that, episode 4? I don't even remember.
I think it was what 3, because that was sort of like the flashback, and then like the whole Jennifer Tilly trial.
Yeah, it was well enough in that I was just kind of like, well, I already don't like this, but okay. Now at least I know what the end game is and what he's doing there in the first place. But why, like you said, why it needed to be kind of like introduced mysteriously and then finally answered like a couple episodes later didn't really pay off in any kind of satisfying way. And another thing. You were addressing the Jake and Devon and their whole consummation of it, which that word gets overused in this season. But by Lexi alone in one scene, which is like, oh, because you consummated your relationship in my room, or whatever she says. She says it like 2 or 3 times. But anyway, I hated that by episode 1, I was kind of over it because they had the unsexiest talk I've ever seen two people have about having sex in my life, teen or adult or otherwise. It was so just kind of like, do you want to get, yeah, I want to, and I'm just, bleh. And then the next episode, we got Miss F involved, and she's sitting there like giving them the joke, and I was of two minds of it because I thought, well, it's kind of nice to see them experience acceptance, like at least she's validating their union by having the talk with them, like it's that important. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it had this hokey, farcical tone to it that hadn't been earned, and nothing. I was like, "What? Is this supposed to be cute? Am I supposed to be laughing?" Again, no fun. I'm not. Yeah. If I don't, we've talked about this. We haven't discussed it on the pod yet in depth, but I've addressed it with the Friday the 13th part 6 of it all. That like it's a sense of humor I don't jive with. So
yeah.
If you're going to infuse humor into something, that's one thing, good for you. But if it's not my particular taste of humor, then I'm not going to find it funny. I'm just going to find myself sitting there going like, why aren't I scared and why aren't I laughing? Why aren't I enjoying myself in any particular way?
I also feel that like a lot of these storylines are just like expedited. Like we're not taking the time. Yeah. And this is, where I go back to that idea of like, where you have an 8-episode season, like let these characters kind of simmer and develop over time. And it just feels like, and this is again the problem going back to season 2, where there's these start-stop. I mean, those are more of like little twists here and there, but here it's just like things are just like rapidly pushed through. Like you mentioned, is it Miss Fairchild? You said Miss F. Yeah, she we saw her. She was very present in season 1, and that was a character that we really responded to. I really liked the relationship that she had with Jake, and sort of just like that she was like a confidant that he could trust, and she completely disappeared in season 2, other than the finale where she just shows up out of the blue, but like 'cause she was there at the end of season 1, and it made it seem like she was their guardian, and I don't remember what happened. Like at the beginning of season 2, they're just shipped off to the
because they're all seen as like problematic. They think that they're all psychos, so they need to go to a correctional facility together.
But she wasn't there. She just randomly shows up, and they're just like, Miss Fairchild, what are you doing here? And she's like, I'm here like because the Lexi's mom is killed by Chucky, so she's like, I'm taking care of you guys now. Like it's like I've stepped in, and she's there for like an episode and a half, and then they kill her off. And I mean, like I get, okay, you want to like obviously raise the stakes and kill off characters that that's gonna leave a void and make you miss them, but they do it in such a way that it felt so like it could have been anyone. They could have like she doesn't really get a lot of fanfare. Like they might just be like, oh my God, he killed her, like let's fuck him up sort of thing. But there's no mourning. There's no like, oh my God, we did this is our fault or whatever. No, they're just off on their road trip and hooking up in the motel and like all this. Like it just feels like when these big things happen. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's just like it's not a big thing because she's been like absent for so long, and then she just showed up again and then was gone an episode later. And it just feels like you have these characters. You've already built up these relationships. Whether it was like season 1 or later than that. Like use that. Like tap into the pathos of all that, and just like what these characters can conjure out of you. And they just like it's just not even attempted. It's just like, all right, we just want to like have a body count thing. Like it felt very much like the Monkey, like the new movie that just came out, where there was just sort of like excessive, like almost like cartoonishly like killing people off, almost like in a Final Destination way. But with Final Destination, it's fun. It's like there's an actual context to it. Like in the Monkey, it was just sort of like, and we're just gonna kill this person and then kill this person. It's just like death is all around us, and it just feels like that in Chucky season 3, where it's like he's just blatantly going around and killing all these people. And I guess the joke is like, well, we're gonna have to cover it up and take these bodies out in the armoire or the rug or whatever. And it's just like, Miss Fairchild deserved better than that. And I feel like there's just we missed out on something more meaningful just so we can have more White House like clandestine conversations behind closed doors that were not interesting.
No, I agree. I also think like even if they could have addressed the fact that she wasn't, that while she was a benevolent force in their lives, they didn't really get to know her that well. If they could acknowledge like we can't even mourn her properly because she got killed before we actually could. We're having people stripped out of our lives before we can even grieve. We thought the worst was the fact that we were having people who were significant in our lives who we're going to miss forever. Mm-hmm. But now we're missing people who we'll never get to know. But they don't do that. And also the fact that she's 3 seasons in and we still barely know who she is anyway, aside from just kind of like a matronly, maternal influence. Yeah. I didn't want to see her die, but also I was bothered by the fact that we were on the 3rd body at that point when she gets killed off in the White House, and I'm like, and they're still not going to install surveillance cameras? Like, what's going on? Like, this could speed things up a little bit, and I'd actually feel a little bit more like, okay, this is worth watching because this is a world or I'm not going like, is nobody thinking of the, there's infuriation that gets you revved up and that gets you caught up and makes you shout at the screen, don't go through that door. But then there's also like the kind of like impatience that you can get when something is just dumb or incomplete. I won't put a judgment on it, but it does feel incomplete. Yeah. Also, I think, let me talk about something I like.
Okay.
Because how long have we been here?
I know, right?
Because I could complain about like basically kind of like the first 7 episodes till the cows come home. But one thing that I really, really appreciated, let's jump ahead. We can always jump back if you want to address anything else, but I just want to jump ahead to talk about, because all the things that I really appreciated were near the end. And it was really at the point where, okay, because this is the thing. It's something I didn't like and then something I liked. They introduced ghosts. Yeah. That ghosts are a thing in the White House and that they're all kind of like roaming around and everything. And I'm like, why does this bother me so much? Like, we're watching, I kept trying to tell, I think it's because I spent the whole season telling myself, just be grateful you're watching a series about a killer doll. And that, like, something's bound to happen you're going to like eventually, but just keep being grateful. And I felt like I was watching the season out of loyalty more than out of like an earnest connection.
Obligation.
A need. Exactly. Yeah. More than a need to figure out what's going to happen. It was more just kind of like waiting out, just like, well, where is this all going to go? And also I got to take notes. But but anyway, I didn't like the ghost thing. I like the second it was introduced as like even a possibility, I was like, oh, don't do this. Don't make the White House the Overlook Hotel. And then they did. And again, has a concept in and of itself. Like, without getting too into it, the White House as a concept being haunted by spirits of the past, I think is actually a really good one on its own. I did not need it in my Chucky. It's not chocolate and peanut butter. It's like Oreo and mayonnaise. So it just didn't work. See? Yeah, that face that you're making.
Like Oreos and mayonnaise, or like the Oreo like cookie part both. With mayonnaise instead of the cream filling.
Both. Either one, whichever turns your stomach more.
Well, they've got a lot of Oreo flavors. There might be a mayonnaise one.
Well, because this is the thing. That was the part of like kind of like the supernatural aspect that I did not appreciate. The thing that I did that actually was introduced pretty early on, and you alluded to it, is when they go to, what was his name? Doctor, I wrote it down. Rosen. Has the supernatural practice, and Chucky finds out that he's infected with Christian magic from last season's exorcism. Yeah. I thought, okay, I enjoy the connectivity of that. I also enjoy the fact that we get to kind of like visit this clinical environment, and it didn't bother me so much that the kids like gained access to it and that like Jake and Devin got to like go in and question this guy, because I'm like, okay, at least this feels like a show. At least this feels like it's somehow interconnected with everything that came before, and it's also a development because there could be a whole supernatural underworld that we don't know about.
It's connected to the lore of the franchise and Damballa. Right. So it's like, I like that, and I did appreciate the fact that it's like that the exorcism in season 2 mattered. Like, it actually there are consequences to that followed through. So that all worked for me. So I agree.
And that Damballa in and of itself has only been something that's been kind of like begged of throughout this franchise. So the fact that it's a force that can now turn vengefully, be a vengeful god on our slasher protagonist, because I think that was another thing. I kept feeling like at this stage, like you're talking to someone who, one of my favorite installments of the franchise is Seed of Chucky, where the puppets feel like they are the protagonists, or the dolls feel like they are the protagonists. And I just kind of felt like by season 3, can't we at least treat them like they're sharing the billing? Because even Chucky felt kind of like in the periphery a lot. Like he didn't have a lot of projection forward in his own series this particular season. He was just kind of like, things were happening to him. And I liked him pursuing the knowledge of it. That's why I like Dr. Rosen and all of that. But then, okay, so we find out about the ghosts and everything like that, and then they bring in Timmy, the psychic, and Timmy tells Jake that, like, you know, somebody needs to die and that this is what needs to happen. And I'm just kind of like, oh my god, Jake's finally gonna do something this season, because that was another thing. Okay, sorry, little tangent. When Lexi was talking about how the president's son is a fuckboy, and she said something like, killer dolls are hard, fuckboys are easy, and how she's gonna go, that's how she's gonna go, like, seduce him, because, you know, how hard can it be? I was kind of hoping in the back of my mind that, well, neither Jake or Devin have really done anything this season yet, and, like, you know, being the femme fatale of it all, whatever, like, I get Lexi, maybe it's on paper making her feel like she's a little more proactive, but what would be more interesting? I mean, Jake's been lifting. He looks like a little chiseled, you know, whatever he is. So why can't the president's son be gay? Or why can't they find out that he's gay? So now Jake has to go in and be like the humana, you know, like, oh, Mr. President's son.
Some conflict between
yeah, exactly. Between him and Devin. Because they introduced it minorly, like when they were looking at the photo of Grant on their phones. And I think he says, like, ooh, hello, or something like that. And then Devin chimed in too and just kind of like, yeah, my gosh, he could, I can't say anything that doesn't sound gross. But anyway, he could do something to me, you know, like whatever. He could.
How old are they at this point? Like,
I don't even know.
Yeah, like
I know that Jake, the actor who plays him, Zachary Arthur, because he posted it for the longest time. I have a feeling he was getting a lot of propositions online. So for the longest time, his Instagram said, I'm 16. But then the most recent time I checked it, he said, I am 18 years old. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay.
It's like, doors open.
Yeah, right? But just so you know, like, now it's legal. Doesn't mean I'm inviting you, but, you know. But before it was illegal, and now it's not. But anyway, but anyway, I just thought, like, okay, that would give, like, Jake something to do. Like you said, it would introduce conflict between him and Devin, because I am thirsty for that, because I agree with you, especially in this season. Not so, I mean, it started in the second season. I got a nub of it.
But
and this
real
season,
conflict,
just like
conflict that actually makes sense.
Exactly. And then when they didn't go that way, I was like, okay, well, I like watching Lexi be in her element, so let's just watch her do that. And then I got her sitting there, hear him talk about how Hackensack must be so real. Anyway, and she rolled her eyes. Yeah. But anyway, but finally, like, Jake has decided he's the one who has to go in, and it's even confirmed by Timmy the psychic that because it's the person with the closest bond with Chucky, that's the person who needs to go in, because your hatred, and this is where I'm starting to go, this is great. Your hatred will act against you in the spiritual realm. It will only empower your hatred for your enemies will only empower your enemies against you. And I was like, that is awesome. I love that. Something about it on almost like a psychological level, and even like a core of your being. I don't know, a very new agey level. It made sense to me. Mm-hmm. So Jake has to go in, and the thing that I loved was the first person that he basically sees once he crosses over into the further, as it were, is his father. Because that was the thing that made me gasp. I think that was the first time the entire season I was like, what? Because I was used to seeing Devin Sawa play the president, you know, and I was just kind of like, okay, and his dad's in the, but now I'm seeing Luke, and and also the fact that I'm seeing Luke it's just reminding me of when I liked the series more too, because I'm watching Luke destroy his creation, his sculpture, Everything about their exchange, was so moving to me. I loved that Jake, I don't know, maybe it's just, I like watching Jake being kind of like forced to stand his ground. And because he was wandering around the season so much, now he finally had something to push up against, and his father was pushing back really aggressively to the point where Jake had to say things and he had to believe them to defend himself and to defend the things that he believes in now. And then the thing that I loved the most was right when he was about to hit him and Jake dodged it. I started crying because he said, panic-stricken, "I forgive you." And I just lost it because I thought, oh my gosh, this is employing something that we learned earlier. Your softness, and I like that it betrays him later, but your softness is going to be your strength here, like your ability to see good in people and everything like that. I appreciated that within the context of that moment with his father, because then he got to hug him and he got to tell him that he forgives him and that he misses him. And his father got to feel like a human being in the afterlife or whatever. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm watching character growth. And it's all rooted in something that happened before. And it's impacting me because I'm invested, because I cared about it. But I love that his father, it wasn't just a saccharine thing, because his father also told him, I have to tell you something too, son. You're going to fail. And he was right. And I like that too. I liked how bleak it was, that everything that I believed in season 2 when Jake was believing in good Chucky, and everybody seemed to know that it was a bad idea, except me. I wouldn't have been as gung-ho as Jake was, but I would have been like, what if?
Yeah.
So I like the fact that it was a strength until it wasn't, and then it betrayed him, and then I love the fact that it got all insidious, and that Chucky just wanted to get into Jake's body, because I also love the way that actor plays it. You have something to say, go for it.
Well, yeah, in theory, everything that you're explaining, I think should have worked really well. But, like we said, that Jake doesn't really do anything this season. And it's not until now. And I just I don't feel that this is earned. It didn't, the father, other than I believe in season 2, he mentions once where he just says that the Devon Sawa priest character reminds him of his
reminds
father.
Me of my dad.
Which
yeah.
I don't physically, because it's Devon Sawa or not, but that's really the only time that the relationship between the father is mentioned, and it feels largely these kids have moved on. That's the thing. They're very one note. It's the only frequency they're tuned into is Chucky, or their love life or whatever it is, and Lexi trying to find Caroline, but there's not really anything else going on with them. And I just we get to this point with Jake, and he comes in there and he sees the father, and it just suddenly it's okay, now you're gonna be a character, and it just didn't work for me. And I felt we spend so much time in that episode in this spirit realm that and I know that you love your Insidiouses and your, what is it called in the Stranger Things, the upside down, the further and the upside down and whatever. And I'm just getting to a point.
The dream world in Freddy's Dreamland.
I'm just getting to a point where I'm just God, can we go check on something else? Because that episode starts off amazingly with the Tiffany stuff of her great escape. And then it stops, and then we cut back to the everything with Jake, and in the 5 minutes that just go on for an hour, and then at some point it cuts back to the Tiffany stuff way later, and we're seeing the end of that, or her just getting past the snipers, and I'm just thinking finally, this is what I'm excited for. This is where I feel there are stakes, because this storyline, and we have not really talked about Tiffany a whole lot here, so I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say about Jake before we moved on, but
If we're closing that chapter, I love. There was also something, I don't know, the fact that he progressed like from an interaction with his father to an interaction with Chucky. Again, see, that's the thing, is that like I understand what you mean from a writing standpoint. You'd probably want to like litter in something throughout the series, you know, every 4 episodes at least, like something about your father or something like that. But I do feel like our relationships with our parents, whatever the nature of them may be, for better or worse, they do have an impact on us. They do. We don't have to like bring them up, you know, like every so often in order for like I could hear my father's no longer alive, and if I heard his voice now, it would have an effect on me, and it doesn't. I don't need to keep talking about him like, you know, consistently in order for me to hear that voice and for me to go like, wait, what? So that doesn't really bother me that much. That said, I also just like the fact that the scars from like whatever transpired with his father got healed, and then he moved on an almost Jungian next step to discuss the next person he confronted was Chucky. And I thought it was actually going to keep going. This is another case in point where I'm saying like, this stuff feels great. I wish we could have spent more time here, because I could have lived in an entire episode where he's just moving through this realm and just kind of like moving from like one strategically chosen victim after the other. If they had been set up, like if he'd come across Miss Fairchild at some point and she could have spoken some words to him, and even if we didn't get more of her in her life, maybe that's why she was here, so she could know him, so she could see something in him, so then in the afterlife she could actually like imbue him with some kind of self-knowledge, something she sees in him that he didn't, like all of that. It could have just been broadened and stretched. It was so jam-packed, and I thought it was so potent, and I wish it could have been developed. But I did like his discussion with Chucky, and I loved the 2001 Space Odyssey reference when he finally finds good Chucky in the bedroom. Just laying there in the white bedroom with the antique kind of looking furniture and everything like that. And I loved the betrayal, because I love something. I love walking the line. I love having hope, and I love having despair, and I love that the world and even the afterlife consists of a little bit of both. And you're right, I love Insidious, but the thing I think that I also loved most about that was watching Zachary Arthur's performance as Chucky. Like, not since Zach Cherry have I heard someone mimic the Chucky voice in a way that kind of like made me giggle so much. Like every time he had a line that he was doing as himself, because I don't think he did the laugh. I think that was superimposed. Brad.
Oh God, I can't even do the laugh. So
yeah, right. Yeah. Only Fiona can do it.
Well, okay.
Besides
so
Brad.
there's a lot to address here. You bring up something interesting, because so here's the thing. Like, his father, I believe, was killed in the first episode, like the very first episode of the series, right? I think it was at the end. So
really
yeah, we don't see, like, that's like Devon Sawa lives on, whether it's like the brother, uncle, or whoever, and he's played 5 different characters at this point, I think. But yeah, like you're right. Like, Chucky kind of became the mentor, the father figure to Jake at that point, and there were some like really interesting and nuanced conversations that they had, and we brought this up in the season 1 episode when we were talking about it, because he like asks Chucky, like, how did you become like this? And naturally, like with just what is to be expected with the franchise, you would like, Chucky's thinks like, how did I get in this body of the doll? And Jake's like, no, I mean, like, how did you become a killer? So the building blocks were already there. And going back to the whole thing with Caroline, is that Jake knows, like, he can sense this, if there was this darkness, because that's the thing. Chucky was trying to conjure this out of Jake. It didn't work, so he moved on to Caroline because it was there. So Jake would have insight into this, or maybe at least like some level of darkness or questioning into it, that he could have these conversations with Lexi or Devin or anyone, or just to try to understand it or anything. And why I don't think that, I'm not as like gaga over this whole dream reunion with the father, is because it's just the show doing the same thing over again, where it's just like characters who like the development is not just being like, yeah, I have trauma. This is my trauma. You have to actually have some sort of like subtextual thing to be happening with the character that incorporates that into the trauma itself. And I feel like just like Jake going through season 3, just being like, I mean, not necessarily happy-go-lucky, but just like meandering aimlessly, other than like, you know, where it's just like, oh, we got to stop Chucky because we're the heroes, or like his whole call me by your name bullshit with Devin, that there's really nothing to him. So like by the time we have this and he's just like sort of like, oh, dad trauma and this and that, it's like, I'm you didn't get me. You didn't like you didn't do enough work to get me to that. I will say of the twist, I guess, and this is why I feel like, you know, you said earlier that there was so much happening in the finale that it's like, why couldn't this have happened earlier? Why couldn't this like maybe the White House stuff could have just been the first 4 episodes and then we could have gone somewhere else after. Because I liked the fact that like Chucky possesses Jake, because I mean like those are stakes. That is bringing something, and you know, it's like our hero, our final girl, quote unquote, is now corrupted, or it's just like he's missing, he's lost. And they spend about like 10 minutes or however long that Chucky's in this body, and then they go to Uncle Wendell's house, and it's just sort of like, okay, now to get into this doll. And that's another thing, this doll that exists after all the continuity from before. But it's like conveniently the same thing with season 2, where it's just like we found we pivoted to a new plot point, and it's like, this is really exciting, but we're gonna wrap it up really quickly now. And they did that very quickly, where it's just like Devin is like now back in his body. It wasn't like the search for Devin, or like, you know, I think that even if the finale had ended with,
or Jake.
Sorry. This is how little I care about.
They're interchangeable at this point for you.
For Jake, like to be
boring
missing.
Gay kid 1, boring gay kid 2.
the twink, as Chucky calls him. But the
right.
if season 3 had ended with Jake still in the further or whatever, and it's sort of like, but him, like Chucky in his body, I feel like that would have been a more tantalizing way to kind of like draw me back for season 4, rather than them being like these dolls, these really stupid CGI looking dolls in the cupboard. Like that's a whole other conversation that we need to have there. As well as like anything to do with like that, I guess the cliffhanger, as it were. But these are the reasons why the direction of like where they go with Jake doesn't work for me, because it's like there was a moment there, I'm like, oh my god, that's like, these are stakes. This is something that's interesting, and will get me to I mean, like you said, I'll always watch out of obligation, but I don't want it to feel obligatory. I want to feel like, you know, I'm being beckoned back into it, and that would have been something like, you know, even if Devin and Jake are interchangeable to me in my mind of like gay number 1 and gay number 2. But I still want to see the conclusion. I want to see where this is going to go. Right. Again, just like sort of blowing your load too soon, which is just something that I find, you know, Don Mancini and the writers have done with the series, at least like season 2 onwards. Now, to pivot to Jennifer Tilly, and I'll just say this and then you can address anything. What I liked, what was drawing me into her storyline, other than the fact that like Jennifer Tilly is extremely watchable as a presence on the screen, but like there's a ticking clock to that storyline. Like she's gonna be executed, like, you know, here's this horrible evil woman, but it's like, but I care because it's like she's for the first time, like she might not make it. Like there's some, like she didn't get her voodoo books or
Right.
her voodoo for dummies, like her dolls or whatever. There was always this conflict that was happening, or the one guard who she had um possessed, or like, was controlling through the voodoo, like ended up getting killed, and it was just like, well, what do I do now? And I feel like, oh my god, she's not going to make it. There's just like this tension that's building towards that, and I feel like this is what's interesting. This is what's drawing me in, because there is that ticking clock, and I do want to see Tiffany succeed. I want to see her get out of this situation, and that's why, we start the episode off so strongly with that, and then it's just like, now we're just slowing the fuck down, and we're dealing with all this like ghostly stuff, and Jake, crawling through this never-ending hell, and I'm just like, I want to see, like, we've been left off on this question mark of like, how's she going to get past the guards? What are we going to do with all these things? And besides the fact that it's hilarious and entertaining, these are the things that I need. And yeah, I'm sick of the White House by this point. So
Yeah.
If you have anything to address about the Jake of it all, like, I'm happy to hear that.
Just that I 100% agree with
Yeah.
you that when he gets possessed by Chucky, that was wasted because it was ingenious. I love the way he pulled it off. I love the way he said one of my favorite lines is him when he goes over and they knock on Wendell Wilkins' door. John Waters, thank you very much. And I was like, oh my God, where have you been? And it's just like, we could have had John Waters all season and you were giving us this bullshit in the White House. But anyway, instead we got Gil Bellows. Ooh, great. And I like Gil Bellows. He was Billy on Ally McBeal, but come on. Anyway, when he knocks on the door and it gets open and he just was like, hello, my name is Jake Wheeler, and this handsome young man is the light of my life, Devin Evans. We're homosexuals, and this is our fag hag BFF, Alexandra Cross.
It was good,
like,
yeah.
Jake! I do have interactions with straight guys. I thought it was hilarious. But okay. So I agree with you there. And the dolls at the end, oh my God, what the fuck was that? Even the look of them, I was just kind of like, they looked like, for anyone who's been to the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland or wherever the Haunted Mansion is, any of the Disney parks, that woman who just sits there and goes, hurry back, hurry back. They just reminded me of that. It looked like projections on doll bodies. So I was like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, but you brought up Jennifer Tilly. Okay.
Yeah.
So I love her trial. I just love the brouhaha surrounding her. I love that she's still every bit, at every opportunity she has, she's embracing the movie stardom of being Jennifer Tilly.
Liar,
Tiffany
liar,
is. Yeah, liar, liar, and all that. And a lot of marabou feathers and a lot of cleavage. I love it. But, okay. But that was another thing. By the time we got to her, I was like, oh, thank God, where have you been? And Nika was there. And I was like, oh my God, where have you been? And then we go to the prison and everything. And I'm just like, oh my God, they're going to make her life so hard. But then she ended up making her little voodoo dolls and everything like that. Now, at first, I was really on board with it because Nia Vardalos played the chef friend who she had, or friend, quote unquote, because they weren't friends for long. But then, like, she decides to kill her with, like, the voodoo doll death and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, good throwback. And I love watching Tiffany do anything. And I like that Nia Vardalos is down to do this. I didn't know she was a horror fan or a Chucky fan, or maybe she's just really, really game. I love her from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. But anyway. So when she dies, also that was a great kill. Like watching her like stab herself and boil herself and all that shit. That was amazing. Then again, a turn though, where I'm just kind of like, okay, you just showed me her manipulating a doll so that its movements were Nia Vardalos's movements. Then in the next moment, she makes a doll of her security guard or officer, like whoever's like, like at her post, like outside of her cell. Yeah, Erica, whatever. And I couldn't care less. But anyway, because she was mean to her, so she finally gets, what was it, a hair or
well, she spits her gum in her
she got her gum.
She's like, this is your dessert.
And I was like, oh my God, so she's gonna like kill as much security detail as she can, and then she's going to get out. Good for her. No, now all of a sudden, something about the voodoo, and it never gets explained either, but now it's like telepathy, like she can control the mind, kind of Dr. X, Professor X way, of just like making people just kind of fawn all over her. Now, granted, I understand the inclination in the character. I agree with that. But like, I wish she could have just turned the page to go like mind control in Voodoo for Dummies or something, just to show that like a different spell is being put forth, because I was like, that's not what you introduced. Just show us that she has like, but I guess I have to do the headcanon for that. So okay, I'll do the headcanon. She opened the Voodoo for Dummies. Now she's doing mind control. Apparently she can do that. We never saw that before, but she can. But this is another thing. A thing that bothered me about like the whole Jake going back into the Chucky doll at the end, and it spills into this as well, is that we introduced at the end of, well, basically throughout Cult of Chucky, but really at the end solidified it that like there can be multiple versions of you in many dolls, or many whatever kind of like things, conduits that you just want to like, you know, fulfill with your spirit and your presence and your personality or whatever, and your consciousness. And they can coexist, and that there's some weird kind of like hive mind that like eventually like it ripples and everybody seems to kind of like share each other's memories, but it takes a while. Okay. So we've introduced that. Now we've got this thing where you have the opportunity for Chucky to be in the OG doll and be in Jake at the same time, but for whatever reason you bring Jake back into his own body just so he can be put inside of another doll. And I'm just like, okay, what? What? Like, that we're overcomplicating things, and at the same time like oversimplifying them. Like I just want to be in on what's going on a little bit more. Not, and I don't mean in on it that it's like, okay, that makes sense, but even just in on it that I'm just kind of like interested, that I'm on board, that I'm like, oh no, not that, you know, like whatever, like just get me compelled by it. And I feel like this is maybe one of the most presentational seasons of a series that I've ever kind of seen. And again, it goes back to that underdeveloped, undercooked kind of thing. But anyway, so she gets all of the people, you know, serving her and everything like that, and I thought that was cool. I agree with you that like when you finally
for 1 second,
because
you brought up a really good point. Is that we don't see, like I was okay with it because it's like it's Jennifer Tilly doing her magic on people and controlling them. I didn't need to see like this person losing control of their body and like what is happening. Why am I, you know, opening the door to the cell now or any of this? But yeah, if there was going to be a thing of just like that we see mind control as part of it, because I can't recall at any point in the franchise if there was anyone who was controlled. I mean, obviously, like we know that whatever the cousin's name is, because he just had darkness in him. He had
Junior?
He had the horror pass through him. But like, you know, that could have been a thing where introducing a thread that maybe Caroline could have been like, oh my God, she's being mind controlled or something. Like she's not a psycho, like just all that, like another thread of hope or just something that would justify like why we're having to go after her. So I agree. Yeah, maybe we could have seen more of, you know, Tiffany like conjuring up her other spells in there, but just, you know, introducing these elements. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. No, that also, because it brings into my mind like another opportunity. You've had various people playing Chucky, being possessed by Chucky up until now, not Tiffany so much. What if Tiffany saw fit to, because this is the other thing, like the more yous that exist, the less chance you have of being extinguished. If there's only one of you, and it's already been introduced, you can splinter into many other, you know, lives. But if there's only one of you and you get killed, that might just be it, unless somebody brings you back. But if there's multiple versions of you existing, then you have more chance of survival, of spreading like a virus. And I wouldn't have minded, again, this more Tiffany in the season, if Tiffany would have just spread herself out and just possessed the security guard and then we get to see all these people doing Tiffany or basically Jennifer Tilly impressions, and that would have been entertaining as fuck. I would have totally watched that.
I think that, but another thing that like comes with the whole idea of splintering that I feel like might have been, because that's the thing, I feel like Chucky is in general, and even Tiffany, are kind of like granted this like carte blanche to do whatever they want. There's never, I mean, other than this exorcism that's like had consequences for Chucky, I feel like there's never any like downside to anything that they're doing, or at least like presented. Like there always is for the heroes, but like for Chucky, and like you said, like Chucky kind of is our protagonist here, you know, even though he is the villain. Like we should have, like, you know, there should be stakes involved in that. And I think that one thing that I don't think that this was introduced when they started like creating all the different Chuckies, because we saw that in season 1 going into season 2, was what if like the more of you there are, like your strength, your intelligence, like all of that stuff is just sort of like divvied up amongst how many of you there are. So I mean, like there could be like 100 Chuckies, but like each Chucky on their own is not as powerful, rather than like this idea of like Chucky Prime. So it's like, you know, they could do this, but you know, be careful because you're not as effective. So it's like if
that would be great.
Yeah, if they had introduced,
I would love if that were introduced too.
An element of that, and then why we can't do that anymore, or things like that. But you're right, like it's just like there's all these like overcomplicated / underwritten ideas that just sort of like, you know, exist when they have to. And I feel that you know, one of those things is that we've seen throughout this series, because like you know, with Cult of Chucky, they introduced like every good guy doll in the world, and by the end of like, I think it was like season 2, because at the end of season 1 is when the truck went off the bridge or whatever, and like all of them were gone. But then they were still finding like rare collector Chucky dolls like here and there, until like it finally got to the point where like there are no other, like this is the last good guy doll that ever exists on the planet. And I feel like it gets destroyed, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's another one, by the way. Here's another. And it's like, I don't know if like it's supposed to be a joke at this point that like it doesn't matter. There's always going to be another one that exists. But it's like, it's, you know, like why even bother to introduce this as a thread? Because like they're presenting it as a way of like, for Chucky, like these are the stakes. Like this is your last doll body that you have. After that, there's no more Chucky. There's no more of like the Chucky that you know. And it's like, but there isn't, because we know that like there's going to be another one, or it's going to be a Belle doll and drag or whatever. So it's just like, you know, it gets to the point where I get really tired that like, you know, even though like, you know, Uncle Wendell like pulls this out and like, great, another Chucky doll, like fantastic.
I didn't feel that way. By that time, I felt like we had mostly course corrected. So I was like, something good is happening that I like. Oh, because that was another thing. I think it was right before Jake was going to go under. Mm-hmm. And I think, it was right after he went under, and Devin has the antidote or whatever to like bring him back to restart his heart or whatever. And he's like, no, let me hold it. And he trusts Gil Bellows, and he's just kind of like, yeah, that's the antidote. And I'm like, I wouldn't trust that. He's letting you hold it. It probably is bullshit. But immediately, like, Devin's just kind of like, that's it. I'm going to, you know, stop this. He's been under too long, and it's been like 2 minutes or whatever. And I'm just kind of like, don't! Something interesting is finally happening, and Jake is standing up. You better not stop this thread. If you bring him back, I'm going to be so mad at you. And he didn't, and I wasn't. But anyway,
I have a question actually.
What?
Because maybe I'm just like, you know, missed the plot or whatever. But like, why did Jake even need to go under, or just like, you know, be clinically dead to go find the spirit, the ghost Chucky? I don't even remember, and I watched this the other day. Because Ghost Chucky was dead, so he could no longer be killed. He could only be destroyed by something else that was on the same astral plane as he was. So somebody had to die, or at least cease living long enough to go and stop. But was there a threat of just like Ghost Chucky being left in the White House? Like, was that? Like, I'm just trying to understand like why, because I just feel like there were stakes that were created that just like, but why does it matter? Because there is one point where Devin actually says it's just like, but Chucky's dying. Like, who cares? Let's just go off on a vacation. And I'm thinking like, yeah.
But he always dies. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I actually really appreciated at the end of the first episode. I think they had gotten whatever their little notes from Chucky, and Devin read. Mine just says "fuck you, Devin." Mm-hmm. But Jake said, "We're gonna kill Chucky, guys, once and for all." And Devin says, "Again?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Devin is actually like a voice of reason here. It's like because they're just doing this like Coyote Roadrunner shit. It's like he's gonna come back. Let's just like.
Well, what are you gonna? But they can't just. Idle hands are the devil's playground.
Okay.
But
well,
anyway.
Okay. Well, let's look at and this is something that I want to address too, is the Andy of it all, because it's like if anyone is like the actual hero, the actual Jamie Lee Curtis final girl, that is Andy. And I want to say, like, I did not appreciate that, even though it was a fake out, like that kind of pissed me off that was like that they would even tease that, like that just. It didn't sit right with me. Like I get the humor of the joke, and he's like, "Oh, he's dreaming about it," but but that's the thing. It's just like another thread that doesn't make sense is like, you know, from the last season of like Kyle and Andy just sort of walking off into the sun's rise or whatever, and just being like, you know, I think we're gonna have a really good life. You know, it's like, why should they pass the baton onto these kids, like that they have to suffer now? You would think that like Andy would still be there and present, like, and just like be on this mission to destroy Chucky once and for all. Like, it's almost like Andy gets it. It's just like, just leave him be or whatever. But like, you know, why is Andy not caring and these kids are? It's like, it's just, it feels so convenient. It's just like, we're gonna.
Well, I know. No, but I know why Jake does, because Jake takes it all on. It even happened like when Jake came back, when he was infused back into his body in Uncle Wendell's mansion. First thing Chucky wanted to do was point out that somebody finally died at the hands of Jake effectively, because I think they had the argument that Jake killed his father, and he's like, "No, I didn't. You did." And he's like, "Yeah, but you stood by and watched me. You wanted me to. You wanted him dead." And I think it doesn't even his father says it to him, like, "You wanted me dead. You dreamed of me." And I'm like, "No, he didn't." And then he says, "Oh, see, this is when I get all emotionally caught up." It's like, not until you started hitting me. Oh God, so fucking good. Anyway, for me, because that's the other thing. Oh, because you talked about how like it didn't feel earned for you and everything like that. But for me, the reason I think why it worked also is because, number one, crumbs. You know, I will take whatever crumbs you throw at me, and the crumbs at that particular point were giving me back at least Jake, the hero from the first season, the kid who I was behind, who I was rooting for, who I didn't want to get swayed by Chucky, but I understood, you know, how he could be coerced into at least being on board for a while, until finally he saw the light, and he and Lexi decided, well, we're stronger together than apart. We don't really like each other, we don't really trust each other, but we're the only people we know who believe what is going on. Anyway, we've had that pod. This one, one thing, I did cry again. I think it was predated the crying at Jake's confrontation with his father, because it was when Jennifer Tilly, Tiffany, how hard is it to say Valentine? When she was on death row. And oh my God, it's splendid black lace train, whatever negligee she was wearing or whatever, it was beautiful. But then she's laying on the table and everything like that. And I knew when they said, "Does anybody have anything to say?" I was like, is Nika better be there. Yeah. Nika doesn't trust her within an inch of life. I want to see her die. Very Monica Keena in Freddy versus Jason.
Oh my God.
I'm going to watch him burn. But anyway, but I understand. Yeah. It's like, fuck yeah, she took your fucking arms and legs and possessed you with things and made you. Oh God! Yeah. Anyway, like she crossed. That's when Tiffany crossed the line for me, where I'm just kind of like, okay, Tiffany, maybe call it. Like, just cut your losses. Yeah. But she didn't. She doubled down, and now Nika's suffering for the rest of her life. Anyway, but when Nika leans in and tells her, "I have a message. I spoke to Gigi, and I have a message for you," and she gave her the sincerest message from Gigi, and though Jennifer Tilly can do anything, because this her rocker manic person who has been so funny, all of a sudden, like, again, I'm getting back like the Tiffany Valentine that I fell in love with, the one who in the foreground while Chucky's laughing in the background at her in Bride of Chucky, and she just goes, "You haven't changed, you'll never change," and the history of their whole relationship is there in her face. All I've ever wanted to do was be like a good wife and a good mother and a good daughter and a good killer, you know, like whatever it is, I don't want to do it halfway, but the things that mean everything to me. So to hear, and also the fact, again, there's this benevolence that very, very Sydney, you know, holding Roman's hand in Scream 3 for me, where it's like, Nika's like, you deserve this because you were a good mother. Your kids think so. And what really killed me was just the line about like how in a world that always wanted to hurt them, they always felt safe with you. I was like, oh God, yes. And the fact that it moved Tiffany, and the fact that like you see her welling up. And then I love what immediately follows is that Nika says, "But I just hope you burn," whatever she says, and curses her, and says like, "You're getting what you deserve," and all of that kind of thing. I think the moments of exhilaration that I've had the most have been Nika's moments in this series. Yeah. Like in last season, it was finally breaking free and just chugging forward in her chair toward the van that Kyle was driving and everything like that. Like, go, run, bitch, run. In this season, it was all of a sudden, I think, what was his name? It was Eli, the fucking security guard who was still under Tiffany's glamour, who comes in with the gun and starts shooting up the place and everything like that. And you just see Nika like bending down in her chair with her little robotic arms and just looking around at the carnage around her and just like getting forward. And I started cheering Nika on, going like, get her. Like, I don't want Tiffany Valentine to die, but I do want to see justice. And I think Nika's earned this kill. So the fact that she got away and that Nika's just like, no, I love
that Nika's
escape.
kind of
it was
like,
amazing.
She's moved into this like morally gray area almost too.
Yeah.
Like here we are, like, I don't know what, I guess like there's some people that got shot in the crossfire that were like on her side of the glass. And she's just sort of like this guy who's like dying, and she's just like, get the fuck out of my way, and just like barreling through him with her wheelchair.
Because Tiffany's gonna get away. Yeah. I understood.
No, totally. But I just like, it's like she's almost like does not value human life above her need to see Tiffany die. Like it's just like one of these things that just like has superseded it. Like this hatred and this emotion that she has for it. I love. Like I think that Nika is one of the most fascinating characters of the franchise. Along with Tiffany, and I hope that there's more Nika to come. But like, yeah, Nika has like crossed over to the like, I don't know what, like there's no coming back for her. She's just kind of fucked at this point. Like I cannot, like we talked about this in season 1. It's just like I don't see a happy ending for Nika ever.
No,
like she's just like she's incapable of finding that peace, and that's
she's Dr. Loomis now. She's forever chasing down her shape. Who is Tiffany Valentine?
The Captain Ahab, and her
Moby Dick.
Yeah.
100%.
Which is fantastic. I love it. I think that it works really well. And that's the conflict that I love. That's what I loved in that final episode of just, seeing that. And Nika wasn't really in the season a whole lot. Like she had the moments, but when Nika was there, she left an impression. And that's the thing, going back to what you're saying. It's just like you're putting the emphasis on the wrong characters, or I mean, at least like, that's not fair to say necessarily, but like with the characters who, are not delivering, like try something different with them at least. So it just felt like there was too little of the good shit that I wanted here, and a lot of like just the same old, and even like doubling down on like not really having a direction for it. And that kind of leads into like, so this whole new plot thread with Uncle Wendell, that we sort of like, we've already talked about that, and then turning into the dolls, which also seems kind of weak because like we don't see it happening, but it's like they're not even putting up a struggle. I guess they're just looking at their doll versions, but they're not even trying to like get out of there. And we just cut to like, we see Tiffany driving up to the house. And this is, I've talked about this a lot, and this is something that I've said that I prefer 100% Jennifer Tilly, like Tiffany being played by Jennifer Tilly rather than an animatronic doll with Jennifer Tilly's voice. Like you're losing the nuance of her performance. Like it's fun to see the doll, and this is where it was fun when it like Tiffany was splintered between Jennifer Tilly's body and however many Tiffany dolls. But it's almost like they've made a decision, and who knows? There's always franchise beyond this, of what happened to Jennifer's body, if you will.
Yeah.
That it's like they've just decided, okay, now Tiffany is just always going to exist in the Tiffany doll, and that left, again, with all the other shit that we were, got to the climax here. That was one thing that really disappointed me, because it's like, it's just so much more demented. Seeing, it's fun. The two of them are in the back making out as dolls, but there's something so much more fun and that I get out of Jennifer Tilly being Tiffany and holding Chucky on her lap or whatever, and just cooing at him like he's this little child, making him Swedish meatballs and cookies, and that's what I want to see. There's just something so fucked up and bizarre about that. And based on the canon that we've seen, when Gigi passed back into the doll, we see the body of Gigi the human laying cold and dead on the hospital bed.
Yes.
So I can only imagine that Jennifer Tilly is like that as well. And maybe that's the same with the three kids. Who knows? Maybe they're being preserved somewhere in the house. And that's the thing. If there was a season 4, I'm sure that whatever this was would have been resolved immediately, because that's just how it goes.
I agree.
But yeah, the fact that it's like we can't. The whole world's looking for Jennifer Tilly. We got to transfer, you into this doll. That was kind of the death knell for me. It's just like. My
heart sank a little for you when I was watching that, because I was because I feel the same way. But I especially thought about you. I was just kind of like, oh, Zach's not going to like this. When I saw their tongues just intermingling, their little doll tongues in the back seat while Caroline's driving them away, I was just kind of like, oh, Zach isn't going to like this. And I didn't dislike it. I love seeing a Tiffany doll here and there, but it's why? But again, why do we need to just choose one thing? And also, is she just gonna? It just makes me kind of sad, because it makes me think in order to get another Jennifer Tilly body, we're gonna need to have Jennifer Tilly play another role now. Somebody who looks exactly like Jennifer Tilly, and somebody who looks exactly like Tiffany Valentine in her human form. It's just and then there'll probably be a comment about just kind of I don't know, there's something I like about the look of her. Something, I don't know. Something familiar. I don't know. I'm wondering, because I remember the last time that something felt kind of a significant end, where I had no concept where it was going to go, and that's what made me want to see it, was the bridge between the end of Cult of Chucky and season 1 of the series. Because for a long time I was watching season 1 going okay, so I'm meeting new characters. Where's the people I know? And it took us a while to get there. And then once we did, there was still a lot of mystery around it. And I love the way that we played with that. But then by the time... now I feel something similar, where I'm just kind of I wonder how entrenched if we do another movie after this, theatrical movie, or even just Netflix release, whatever.
Oh God, no!
Feature.
Don't say
I know
that.
I'm not going to put that. I know. But whatever it is, I'll take it. But if it is a feature film,
I would like to own it on physical media. We're not giving it to Netflix.
Okay. So that thing, if it happens like that, if it an isolated film, how much is it going to be entrenched and meshed with what's going on? There obviously has to be some kind of allusion to it, but are we going to completely? Maybe that's something else that made me sad about the White House of it all, was that we spent so much time with the first family. I don't feel any closer to them. I don't want to. I'm kind of glad that so many of them are dead. Because that was another thing. Here they had this tragedy of the son. And even in the first episode, we had the president and the first lady on the floor of, was it the Oval Office or their bedroom, wherever they were, their bedroom, and they were just taking hits off a bong, talking about mortality and shit. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a way to go. We never moved beyond that. I never felt like I got to know them, so I don't really I mean, I guess if Grant shows up again, he's the most interesting member of that family, as far as I'm concerned. But so give him an opportunity to kind of like, serve. But give them all. But do we also? It's starting to feel very crowded now. I'm like, who's going to be where? What are we going to do? How are we going to get there? And what's Chucky's end game going to be this time?
It's got like a finale of Scream 6 vibe, where it's just like all these characters still alive. We're all part of a fucked up family now. Hayden Panettiere. But I was even thinking at certain points, it's just like, my God, and you know how boring I find Jesse and Jade, but I'm just thinking like, God, I'd rather like Jesse and Jade be here at this point, because like
I thought the same thing.
At least they're ignorant, like by like through hijinks, like it's comedic hijinks that they don't know what's going on. I'm looking at characters being ignorant who should know better, and that was hard for me. But you're also like, just to jump back to the Jennifer Tilly on death row thing, and like just sort of like things happening and then just inevitably going here. It just makes me think, why did she not, if she was going to end up in a Belle doll, why not just have a Belle doll brought to the prison by her constituents and transfer her soul into the doll, and then suddenly it's just like they come and like, oh, she died of natural causes, and then she could just scurry out of there as a doll. Like if why go through all of this rigmarole if we're just gonna do that anyway? So it's like it's more of these things. It's just stuff happening, not really having very much forethought for where it's going. And there's so many like loose thread. It's not even that there's loose threads, it's just that there's so many threads that are there and like are kind of, they're done, but they're just like, why are we spending so much time just like, it's like they're almost episodic, not even seasonal. And at least that's a thing that I can get out of a movie, because a movie in the Child's Play franchise is like a whole entity unto itself, that like, even if like a character or characters like Jesse and Jade are like, just meant to be in one movie, I feel like their story is done, rather than these things, because I feel like we're never gonna see the First Lady Charlotte, is that her name again, or like the two sons, like that's not gonna happen. I feel like Caroline, like if anything, like Caroline will probably be something that is addressed moving forward, because like I think of Caroline and it's very similar to Nika's niece. We haven't covered Cult of Chucky yet, but like this, it's kind of implied that like, Chucky possessed her body and then she got killed or whatever, and then went on. So it's like, we have a similar situation with this little girl, but Caroline is obviously, evil herself. So I don't know what like different path they can go down there. But if we never saw at this point Jake, Devin, and Lexi again, I probably wouldn't be all too upset about it, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I honestly felt like for most of the season that we should have been, I already kind of said this, but I really wish we'd been following Chucky, Tiffany, and Nika for the most part, predominantly, and that the ones to dip in a little later, like maybe 2 or 3 episodes in, because they've been looking and they've just been wandering around anyway. So like would have been that trio, Jake, Devin, and Lexi, if they could have just been like, we've been looking and we've been finding, and now we finally tracked him here. Something like that I would have been fine with, as opposed to like what we got. But another thing that I feel like I can attribute it to, because I looked, and again, you never know how it actually happened, how it went down like behind the scenes until someone tells you. But I'm speculating. It felt like Don Mancini may have been a little hands-off on this season, because I only saw him I didn't see him have one director credit, but I saw him have writing credits. Like he's always credited as creating and characters based on by Don Mancini and all that, creating the TV show and creating the characters. But IMDb only credits him as a writer, like a direct collaborator writer on 3 episodes, I believe. So it makes me wonder if it just kind of got away from him, and if like it was just like if another feature because I always feel very safe, and particularly in like Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky. But I love Seed as well. But I mean, with Curse and Cult, I felt like he adapted, visual savvy, and it carried over into the first season. Started noticing like a lot of those incredible like lines, those incredible angles that you could catch a room at, and that was lost in this season. Also, there wasn't a real strong color palette. You were right; it did have a general kind of like West Wing blah
very
background
flat,
by being
it felt
very
like
beige.
television. And I mean, first of all, so I mean, Don Mancini, I guess, like. It's because that's the thing. It says Don Mancini's Chucky season 3,
Right.
So I think that he's just the general showrunner. But still, I mean, like you got your hand there. But I mean, I guess maybe not always, because like you'd think of like Buffy season 6 and 7, where Joss Whedon was kind of stepped away. But there was obviously this has been a thing that even with the movie, like probably from Curse, because those were straight to DVD or straight to Blu-ray, all the mediums at the time. But obviously the production quality went down, and I feel like there is a lot of like the cinematography is still relatively nice in Curse, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't really remember Cult. I haven't seen it in a while, but I
think it's gorgeous.
There is an aspect to the show that does feel very low budget, and I mean, we've talked about that. There were certain moments, like I think it was in season 1, where like the Kyle explosion of it all like looked really cheap.
Boy.
And I've noticed a decline in like like as we go through, and by this season there's like a lot of things that just like like that looks pretty shoddy, that looks pretty fake, and just like just a very like CGI look to a lot of things. And I mean, like the kills in a lot of, so like I think the kills are great in terms like for what they are. The CGI of it all, and like this like Freddy versus Jason like splatter, like it ruins it. And I wish that they had put more budget into doing things more practically. Like there's one where like the umbrella down the cab driver's throat, which was like, that was really fun. And I mean, like if there was a way to do that more practically, I think that would have worked really well. But it just feels like throughout a lot of the series, it's just it's hard to really appreciate the kills because of that aspect to it.
Yeah, no, and also noticing Kenan Thompson there just going like, oh my God, are you going to be a cast member now too? No, you just showed up for a day so you could get killed by Chucky as the cab driver. Yeah. But no, I agree with you. I thought the kills were pretty magnificent set pieces in and of themselves. But after a while, they started kind of being the perks, and as opposed to like just one more thing to enjoy. And I like a lot of variety. I felt... you know what I felt? I felt kind of like I wanted to scream, I'm not a child, like you can't just buy me off with like a really, really great kill and a crappy script. But I also didn't want to say it because I also kind of want to exclaim it, I'm not a child. Like you didn't get in touch with my inner kid who's kind of like, get me on that. It's more just kind of like, oh, that's really well done. I don't want to be that detached from what it is that you're creating. So like do something with it. I did want to ask you something though, because we haven't really touched on this either, but just the introduction of Brad Dourif, the reintroduction. He's done it a couple times, but of Brad Dourif as Chucky, but as age-appropriate Chucky. Yeah. Charles Lee Ray, the ghost, moving through the White House and meeting with Damballa and all of that. Yeah. How did you feel about all that?
Oh, I love it. I mean, like, I'm a hardcore Brad Dourif fan through and through, so I mean, like, I just love seeing him in anything. It's probably the one saving grace for the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. I mean, there's more than just him, but especially like in H2, love seeing him in there. So it's just like I mean, I welcomed it. It was a nice touch. I think that it worked nicely. And
what about the movie house, the little movie theater that Jake moves into with all the different versions
the iterations?
Of Chucky?
I mean, I liked that. It was because it was sort of like a callback to like that the series, the Chucky TV series as it's been, because we saw like little
little
boy Chucky, even though that actor's, and I'm pretty sure it's the same actor, but he's, a little bit older now.
A little older,
There's the teenage Carrot Top looking version, obviously the Fiona Dourif in drag version, and then like Chucky Prime, and then you had good Chucky, obviously you had the beefed up Chucky, you had the
Colonel
Chucky. So they had them all there. Yeah, that was part of like the further, if you will, that I enjoyed. Just seeing all of those characters all together.
Yeah, I like it too. I like watching them interact, and I love seeing good Chucky again because I really love watching, even though it's a lie.
It's so
I know it's a lie, but it's so great. Yeah. And just watching him like wince at like the movie, when all these horrible things are happening while everybody else is laughing and cheering, all the other Chuckies. I just love that. And even there was something really cool about like watching this kind of like, I don't know how else to describe it, like almost like this filing of them standing in line across from Jake at the bed of good Chucky, all just like kind of having this conversation, just looking at him like expectation, like, with expectancy, like what are you gonna do? What's gonna happen? And I don't know, something about it just keyed into something for me where I was just kind of like, well, now I feel like I'm watching something that's got something to it. That why couldn't we have been doing things like this the whole time? Why did we have to save the big bag of tricks for everything, basically at the end? I mean, maybe I'm shitting too much. Like I'm trying to look and see if there's anything else. I mean, I did laugh out loud when they were standing outside the Amity house, and Caroline asks, "Who's Ron DeFeo?"
Who?
I thought, yeah, right. I thought that was cute.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm asking. Like, I don't know who that is. I didn't get the reference.
Oh, the dad in the Amityville Horror.
Oh.
The guy who killed all of his family and everything like that. He's the legend.
Oh, okay.
That's why Chucky was so like just kind of like, these kids, they don't know
I guess
anything.
I'm one of these kids. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're one of those kids. Oh, and also there was something, it was so random, but again, there was like almost nothing going on. Mm-hmm. And I just kept wondering how many other franchises are going to push in Don't Fear the Reaper. But we finally got Lexi doing a little musical number with Grant while he's playing the piano, and she's singing her little cover of Don't Fear the Reaper. I haven't looked for it on my title music yet, but I'm wondering if they released it as a single, because I'd listen to that. I thought that was kind of groovy. But and also just like little things. I liked when Grant offered to like show them a Marvel movie, and Lexi had exactly the right response, which was ugh. And I was like, 10 years ago I wouldn't have felt that way.
Yeah.
Now I do.
Look, I'm actually because I have not followed it, but I'm a little excited for this Doomsday. They're bringing the original X-Men back. It's gonna be like but I get like that. I was actually just thinking like the where were they, like if we brought back all the survivors and stuff, because I know the ones that I want to see, but I feel like it would be this jam-packed thing where you'd have like the Jake, Devin, Lexi, the Officer Mikey, Karen Barkley,
100%,
Jade and Jesse Kincaid, Nika
De Silva.
Where is she? See, this is I wanted more Andy in the series. Of course, Andy. But just like, where are these people? Because like we were teased with De Silva, and I think it was like at the end of Curse, because like when we see his house and he's got like the photo of her and certain things, like I'm interested in that. Like I like these already pre-established things, but I just feel like at this point it's just like if they had like all these people come together, it's like they're gonna kill a bunch of them, and I don't want to do like I just want to see like the most important ones, and I feel like at this point there's just so many. It's like that's what I'm saying. Like there's all these like threads that are like not necessarily loose, but just like short enough that like okay, we got some like brief storyline out of it, but not long enough that like I want to see them team up as this like Marvel's Avengers thing to defeat everyone. So just going back to the Doomsday of it all, I feel like that's going to be a pretty big movie, and I feel like there's just a lot of fan service and just like little moments, but not like an overarching storyline for any one particular character that is going to matter.
Yeah,
and I'm so far behind. I'm so unprepared, but I'll see it.
No. No, there are so many that I have not seen, and
Yeah.
I'm abstaining. But I'll, maybe I'll get back to them at some point. But I have no vested interest at this particular point in Marvel. As far as Chucky is concerned, I just want to see Don Mancini in control of the next project, and I hope it's isolated. I hope that it kind of does what Curse did, which for me, I remember Curse was like this surprise, and I won't go into it too much because there's a pod for that too. But with this one, it would be nice if like we could just kind of get back to basics, just kind of satisfy some appetites, throw in a little fan service to answer some questions about like who might be floating around where and what they're doing. But don't Endgame. Don't give us Chucky Endgame.
Something a little more self-contained. Back to the basics. I think we do, because I feel like that they did that with season 1. I mean, it was back to the basics, but they did sort of explore new ideas, and then it was just sort of that's kind of been the theme of this series. It's just like, just because you can doesn't mean you have to. Is the note that I would give for. Doesn't mean you should. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to see something more intimate, because I think that's just where Chucky lives. Like, they're just trying to make him like larger than life, and Chucky has always been more interesting moving around in the shadows, like, because he's he's hidden in plain sight. He's got a big personality, but he's not this character that needs to be all encompassing and just like have his head on Mount Rushmore, so to speak, as we see in one of the openings of the title card. Yeah.
No, but at this point, just a gateway, and we got another generation of horror fans on the way. Yeah. So create something gateway so they can get into the franchise themselves. And they'll see this and they'll be like, wow. I want to see the rest of the movies in this franchise and the TV show and all of that, and then go crazy.
Now, having said that, because I mean, we talk about like you go back to the basics and start from scratch, but we have left off on a point here where like Tiffany is such a big part of that, and I feel like Tiffany is like a complication in the franchise at this point, that it's like kind of hard. Like, even when Curse came out, it wasn't really made apparent that this was a direct continuation. And that's something that we've talked about, like what we really love about this franchise is that the continuity is all there. Like, everything is connected from beginning to end. That I wonder like how at this point they would be able to go back. I mean they could use this idea that he like had Damballa had forsaken him or whatever, that is just like he Damballa, why have you forsaken me? I'm fucking dying. But just sort of like, it's just like for him to kind of go on, he has to sort of start back at square one. And here we are again with
pretty cool.
Yeah, a child. But like with the knowledge that Chucky would have gained of like, this is what eventually is going to happen. I got to do it differently this time. So
and even the structure, I don't need like a reboot. Like, don't just remake the first movie, which I don't think Don Mancini would ever do. No. But again, like the way Curse did, like you introduce a child and you introduce the doll, so you've got the draw there. Mm-hmm. But everything that he did with Curse was like a new spin. It wasn't just kind of like treading old footsteps of like the first movie. Even though it kept some very crucial things in place, it knew we're going in knowing who Chucky is, ultimately, just not where he's been or how he's gotten there. So maybe show us a little of that after, but also create some really good set pieces, some really good production design and atmosphere. Like, I love oh my god, I love that house. But now it'll be a pod about Curse, but anyway. But ultimately, like I liked the fact that it could win, this series could win me back in this final episode, enough so that like I could just remind myself, you do care what happens to these people. It just needs it just not under any circumstances, it has to be conditional. You have to do something interesting with them. But I know I will show up for the next chapter, whatever it is, and I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed that it's what the franchise needs and what Don Mancini needs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I'll be there out of obligation, but I don't want it to feel like obligation. But I mean, like
100%.
Don Mancini and Chucky and everyone, like they have me. I'm committed to the franchise for life. But just like take your time. I mean, I think that the series, in theory, I think was a good idea when we went into it, and there might have been a way to make it more sustainable, or it might have been a thing that was just better as like a limited run, because we talked about this, in the season 1 pod about how maybe this is the right home for Chucky, and then it just sort of went in the wrong direction. But obviously at this point we're gonna have to recalibrate and figure out where to go from here.
Yeah. I also did have to wonder, because I know I was among the more enthusiastic responders to the second season, but I know I was in the minority, and I was wondering, I had a lot of time to wonder while I was watching this season, and I just couldn't help but wonder at certain points, like, are they just trying not to do too much to overwhelm or overstimulate, because it seemed to turn off a lot of the viewership in season 2, and is that why we're sticking to such a kind of like basic structure? Beyond basic, it felt bland to me, but I couldn't help but wonder if that was, and then if at the end they were just kind of like, but we have to have something happen, so let's just I don't know. Well, but I mean, it got me back to a point where I felt like when I used to watch like Ryan Murphy's series like American Horror Story or even Glee, where I would be off board for so long and then something would happen and hook me right back in, and then it would just kind of flatline for a while, and then something would happen and it would hook me right back in. And
that's a really good way of describing this season, because I think in season 1 and even season 2, for all of its faults, I have to credit it that it had a flavor to it. Like I know I can set that apart from every chapter in the franchise. It's just like, this is like there's an ambiance to it, like the setting of where they are, like all the stuff with Tiffany, living in her mansion, and the twins coming to visit. This season just felt very flat. It doesn't, I guess the identity is White House, but it's just like, that's not enough, because like I said, they didn't really do anything thematically with that.
Underdeveloped.
So to answer the original question of what ultimately happened, like why did this get canceled, because I think that it didn't get canceled until sometime after. I remember there was this whole campaign, and even Jennifer Tilly was saying like, oh, we're gonna hear today if we got renewed or whatever, or just, but there was no news of it getting renewed or canceled, so it was just sort of in limbo for a long time, until finally months later, after everyone had forgotten, they're just like, we're just going to cancel it. And as far as Sci-Fi, the network that airs it, I think that it was doing well. It was one of their most popular shows, so I don't know if this is a budgetary thing, or what the case was. But it's certainly for me and everything that I've discussed here, the script, for sure, that's always the core root of the quality of what you're watching, and I don't think that it was developed enough. So, I would say that that's the reason why it's not going on. But I mean, if people are still turning up and watching it, it's hard to say. But if you have another theory as to why it might have got canceled, please.
I'm wondering if the people who were not posting about it on social media were the same people who were not showing up, maybe to see it wrap up. I wonder how many people saw this season through to the end, because like you said, it was kind of, it wasn't everywhere in season 1 and 2, but it was there. I could see, a bus stop here, a billboard there, but and also because I'm on social media, I could see people sharing things, and I follow Don Mancini and stuff like that, so I see his posts and everything. But even that seemed to kind of fall off a little bit. I'm just wondering, I don't know if it couldn't survive both COVID and a writer's strike. That's hard. Also, there's something to what you said about taking time. That was another thing I thought was, I wonder if this one was also just a question of scheduling. If they I don't know how sci-fi structures things, but I have a feeling like a television channel is probably structured differently than, say, a streaming service, because a streaming service, it seems like things, if they adhere to a structure, it seems like they know that going in. Like, okay, so you're shooting here and there, so we're going to release on this time. Because we release on this time, season 2 will release a year later from that, like whatever. But a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times you just kind of get your season when they've finished writing it, when they've locked down all their locations and all their pre-production, and when they've got everything cast, and then they shoot it, and then they edit it, and then they present it to the world when it's ready. And I feel like maybe this was also just subject to being a rush job, because it did come pretty soon. Even with the writer's strike, it came pretty soon on the heels of season 2. So I don't know, maybe
eager to get back in there and just...
Yeah, all of that said, I don't think there's any shame in 3 seasons. I wrote here at the top of it, 3 is a magic number, because I think I walked into this season knowing it was canceled. I just said 3 is a magic number for non-Ryan Murphy-produced horror series. And then I thought about Hannibal, Ash versus the Evil Dead, Santa Clarita Diet, and Penny Dreadful, all 3 seasons only.
Yeah,
so.
And I mean, to speak favorably of it, and I'm just thinking of like Child's Play as a whole, I would never... be like, if I was to do a marathon run of the entire thing, I would never like get to season 3 and be like, I'm not watching that, like sort of thing, where it's just like, there's, a lot of franchises where I might be like, yeah, we're going to skip that one on this viewing. I mean, like, like Halloween franchise, for example. So, I think that everything, even though this is a low point, and I mean, we haven't gone through the rankings. We don't have to, because it's more complicated when there's seasons involved. So don't worry about that.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's definitely it's sitting at the bottom for me.
I think it's, because movie-wise, I do know that 3 was always like at the bottom for me. And I would always say, it doesn't mean I hate it. I like it. It's just the other ones I feel are so much better in terms of like how I'm spending my time watching the movie. With this season, I feel the same way. I feel like how I'm spending my time is mostly just pumping my leg, just going like, oh my God, can we just... But that said, I own it on Blu-ray and I will watch it again. And if I get to points that I know where nothing really significant is going to happen, I'll get up and I do my laundry, I'll do my dishes, I'll feed the cat.
I was doing that a lot while I was watching this.
I was seated. I wanted to give it my full attention this initial run, so I did do that, and I wanted to take my notes and whatnot, but I don't know if I'm going to do that again.
Yeah.
So I will have significant moments where I know, okay, we're getting close to the end.
Yeah.
Time to sit down and put your phone away. Yeah.
Okay. Well, gosh, we've been going on for a while, so let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people. On purpose.
All right, we need a cherry on top. I know who it is, for me at least, and I think it'll be the same for you. But I do want to. We didn't really talk about Devon Sawa all that much, and I do want to kind of say something there, because he's just so great, and like just the fact that he comes in and he's just like playing these new characters. And my favorite moment is not him as the president, but when he's the double. And he sort of has this, because he's trying to ingratiate himself to the first family and the first lady. And there's this moment, like, I guess he's being like whisked off by the security or what Secret Service, I should say.
Secret Service.
And he just sort of has this quirky little moment where he's just like, hey, and she's disturbed beyond all recognition, because it's like, here's my husband is dead, and here's this imposter who looks like it, but he's just having the best time of his life playing like whatever they throw at him in this series. And I feel like I didn't realize that he was going to be in season 3 as well. So it started and like the president came up. I'm like, that's Devon Sawa, like the meme of Leonardo DiCaprio, where it's just like, oh my God, it's him again.
I agree with you. I did prefer Randall Jenkins, the stand-in for to the president, because again, we didn't really get to know that way. He's just haunted by his son and he's following him, and that really didn't go anywhere. But in terms of like what he was doing, there was one point where he's talking to her and she leaves the room and he's just kind of like, oh, hello, oh, well, and I was just kind of like, God, look at him just effortlessly, but doing the work, and then just letting it go and just letting the scene be funny. The problem is it wasn't properly set up. Like, I'm not ready to watch a moment like this and care about it, but it's not Devon Sawa's fault in the least.
Yeah.
And then again, that was another thing. Seeing him return as Luke, that's probably another reason why it was a little boon to me, because watching him get to play something, with Jake, and something potent and something where I believe both of them. Yeah. And I was rooting for something to happen just to watch them come together, but then also not to have it, like I said before, not to have it be saccharine and oversaturated with this kind of like, so they do love each other, like, no, he's still an asshole, or not an asshole, but he will receive your forgiveness. It's not going to make him go, all right, go out there and get him, son. He's going to tell you, okay, but you know what? You're going to fail. Yeah. And I'm telling you that because I love you, kind of thing. Yeah. I loved it. Yeah, it was awesome. But that said...
Well, I just want to say that I hope that whatever the next project in the franchise is that Don Mancini is going to undertake, and I don't see why he wouldn't, but I would really appreciate Devon Sawa being part of that, playing a brand new character or multiple characters, even twins again. And I mean, throw in Laura Jean. Yes. Sorry, I can't pronounce her last name.
Yeah. She had. It was another one. Tough load, playing the same scene over and over and over again throughout the whole season, and then she just shuts down completely. I was like, this is a raw deal. Yeah. You deserve more than this, girl. You can do more than this.
But yes, it's. Should we say it on the count of three? 1, 2, 3. Tiffany! Jennifer Tilly? What?
She would hate me for saying Jennifer Tilly because it's like, how hard is it to remember Valentine? But, yeah.
No, she's just, as we said, like, just effortless, and just comes in there and brings it. And also, like, if anyone's been watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills this season, because she's now officially a friend on the cast, and, as we're recording this, the reunion is still being aired. I think it'll probably have been wrapped up by the time this releases, but she's there too, and she's just, there's so many allusions to Chucky that she makes throughout it, and my favorite is she's talking about, because she is filthy rich, because she married is it Sam Simon, one of the creators of The Simpsons, who like they got divorced and he's since passed away, but like in her divorce settlement, she, negotiated for, to always get Simpsons royalties. And she had this funny
piece of the Simpsons.
Yeah, she had this funny moment where she's just like, I'm not rich from Chucky money. That just pays for my snacks.
Yes.
So she's just doing this for fun. Like, she doesn't have to, but she's just
Yeah, but also, I mean, she's definitely having fun. Yeah. That's another thing, is that every time she's on screen, I'm like, go for it, girl. Like, whatever it is, you're giving it your all. You're putting your whole everything into it. Yeah. But it did kind of make me sad, though. As I was watching, I was just like, God, we could have made so many jokes about Real Housewives, about Jennifer Tilly being in Real Housewives at this point. Yeah. But I understand there's two different realities, but...
I don't think that when this aired, because she went to this current season... I don't think it started yet, so there was that. Okay. But I mean, it had the two been on in tandem, that would have been a really fun thing to bounce back and forth. And we did have in season 2 like the murder mystery night or whatever that was. Sutton Strack, who's her connection, her friend on the show, was as a guest in that episode playing herself. So, I mean, you can look at it as like maybe some crossover, but it definitely would have been funny if there was some more to it.
Oh, it also gave, I think Nika probably had her only moment where I'm not like 100% behind her is this season, when she tells her that Bullets Over Broadway sucked. And I'm like, okay, you can say a lot of things. But the women in that movie carry that fucking movie. It's not just Jennifer Tilly, but Jennifer Tilly is a prime component, but so is Diane Wiest and Tracy Ullman and Mary Louise Wilson. Parker, Mary Louise Parker, sorry. But oh my God, so don't, Nika, you're just saying hurtful things now. You went too far. Anyway, that's when she went too far for me. So there you go. Jennifer Tilly, Tiffany Valentine.
Why is she dissing Jennifer Tilly's work for? I mean, I know that Tiffany likes to think that she was in Liar Liar and tortured Nika by making them watch it over and over again.
I mean, she was a fan. Yeah. The first time Tiffany laid eyes on Jennifer Tilly, she's like, Jennifer Tilly, in slow-mo, eating that chocolate bar.
Bound. And sorry, I'm doing more of a Jennifer Coolidge there. I can't do Jennifer Tilly.
I'm watching Bound. You know what? That should happen. Yeah. Jennifer Coolidge should be the next person to be like possessed by Tiffany.
Yeah. Oh my God, get her in the fucking franchise somehow.
100%.
Yeah. Just like have her play Tiffany's like best friend from back in the day.
I'd love it. Oh my God, living for it. Snaps. Yeah. Snaps. Yeah. I am living for it.
Well, now that we know that Jennifer Coolidge is not going to be playing Pamela Voorhees in the Voorhees. No, it's going to be, oh my gosh, Velma.
I was just gonna say Velma.
Oh my gosh, why can't I remember her name?
And Permy from Legally Blonde. So hey, 6 degrees of separation. Yes. They were both in Legally Blonde.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no disrespect. I can't. Why can't I place? It'll come to me after.
Yeah, I can never remember her name.
Yeah.
The one with the dark hair and the pale skin.
I know. I'm trying to look it up,
but we don't have
time. Yeah. You can look it up while I'm reading stuff.
Oh,
here,
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, so last week or 2 weeks ago rather, we asked you who deserves to die the most in House of 1,000 Corpses, or HO1KC. Otis Driftwood versus Dr. Satan. I nominated Otis. You nominated Doctor. Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the final tally was 328 for Otis Driftwood versus 181 for Dr. Satan.
Linda Cardellini.
That's what it is.
All right,
it's an Italian name. It sounds like a pasta. Cardellini? I hope that's not offensive.
I know, I was just going to say, just keep going. Just steamroll right through.
Look, there's a lot of there's a lot of pasta names that I just like.
Oh my God.
I'm sure are like last names for some people. I'm discovering
and I am absolutely sure you're not the first person to say that about Linda Cardellini. Just don't ever say it to her.
No. Gosh, she's going to hear this or someone's going to play it for her and she's going to be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
she'll meet you at a con.
I have no doubt that she's going to bring something really special to that role, so I'm excited to see it. But
me too.
To the comments, Blue Box 87. From what I remember, I think this is a rare case of every single character deserves to die, but Otis is more annoying. Adrian Phillips. You know, a family is reprehensible if baby feels like a reprieve. Dr. Satan is my pick. Uninspired as a doctor, BDSM style vanilla. I bet Zombie got a good old Adam Marcus kick with how industrious he got with this racy movie. Zach or Chucky, do you consider this movie worse than Soul Survivors? Again, love the channel and your unparalleled chemistry week in, week out. We covered Soul Survivors. We covered Soul Survivors on the old podcast. We haven't talked about it here. That is oh my gosh.
That one.
I don't know. Yeah. But the thing is, I might be able to sit through that. Like, it's probably really boring. I don't know. You're putting me on the spot here. What would Chucky think? I feel like Chucky would probably prefer House of 1,000 Corpses. Just in terms of like the brutality,
the gore.
But me, I'm just I don't know. Silent Saturn. Eddie for suggesting this movie ruined my Saturday night. Hashtag Team Bonnie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. She's already made amends. I reminded her too. Yeah. I told her, "Do you remember this?" She's like, "I have no memory of any of this." But I think you're right. I think I did, avenge myself or whatever. Like made good on my renege. But go on.
Mad Apple. Otis. I could smell the gingivitis through the screen.
God, okay.
Alex is lame. I swore to myself that I would never watch this movie again. Thankfully, Dead Meat did a kill count for it so I could get a refresher without actually watching the entire thing again. After both Halloween movies and this one, I think it's safe to say that Rob Zombie films just aren't my cup of tea. Oh yeah, I guess I'll kill Otis even though literally anyone in this movie could die and I wouldn't care. Please don't make me watch the sequels.
I think I asked you at the end of that pod, like, do you have any interest in seeing, not Three from Hell, the other one, Devil's Rejects now, and you said no. So no, we won't.
Heave 85. My vote is for Dr. Satan. I love Otis and Devil's Rejects. Too much to kill him off here. Plus, I love the family. Zach, give Devil's Reject a chance.
Wow. Okay, from the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spidey fan. If the theory about Dr. Satan being Daddy Firefly holds true, I gotta go with him. Even if it doesn't, though, I think he's enough of a monster with what he does before and during the movie. So kind of a mix of both. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I gotta pick a person from here.
Who deserves to die?
Oh my
the
gosh.
most?
Probably. I forget the character's name, but you kept mentioning the actor Gil Bellows character.
Oh yeah. I have his character name here, Warren Price.
Yeah, and more so just for being like a very bland villain. I didn't find him interesting at all. Obviously, I was rooting against him the whole time. Like he was just there to be a nuisance. Evil for no reason, like just not compelling, not interesting, and yeah, he needed to be killed sooner than some of the other characters that were killed off. So that's my vote. Yeah, gonna go with him.
I'm wondering because I have two in mind. I don't know which one to go with.
Oh. Do you want to say both of them? And...
Yeah. Okay. So the first one I thought. Well, first one I thought while I was watching is exactly the one you chose, so you're probably going to win again. But because you're right, he's uninteresting, and even his death isn't satisfying.
How did he die? I don't even remember.
Alive, and I'm like, he got locked in the by Grant. Grant, the president, locked him in the Oval Office, and then he burned for a while, and then he finally got the door open after Grant locked it, but because the forefathers came in, and the forefathers started to kind of like, they moved in like the hyenas on Scar, you know, like we're gonna get you. It's like, bitch, he's already on fire. Like I don't really care either. Like, also the forefathers, are they really in a place to judge? I mean, they've done some pretty heinous things themselves. Like here they are looking down their nose at Gil Bellows or Warren Price. Is that the name I said? I already forgot. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah. Okay, so he was the first one who came to mind. So he's off the table now. The first person I thought of the second you chose him was, I mean, Caroline. If for two reasons actually, like number one for being bad to the bone and nobody sees it. You know, you made the case pretty much early on in this pod, but also just the fact that like also just written like I actually found her to be kind of fascinating in the first season. And then the second season I was like, "Oh, good. Okay, so we're going to like, you know, finally pay off on that." No, she's just kind of drank the Kool-Aid is the vibe I get from her now. Just kind of like, well, this is where people make sense to me, or I make sense to people, so I'm just kind of going to do this. You're not my family anymore. And it's just so uninteresting and detached, so it makes me want to kill her. Because also, she's somebody who I actually, if I see her again, I'll be like, okay, continuity, thank you. But if I don't see her in the next Chucky project, I'm not going to be sad. Even though I think the actress is really good. I want to say that. It's not her fault. None of this is the actor's fault in this series. But the other person I thought, and this is, okay, when they consummated their relationship, Jake and Devin and everything, they were so lovey-dovey that it wasn't that I wanted them to die, but I just kept thinking, this has to set up a division. You do not set up this kind of like just like gauze-eyed, like just, oh my gosh, I'm devoted to you and we're the heroes, remember that, and you are special, you are beautiful. Like, I don't even know if they're saying that, but I mean, that's just that bullshit, just that kind of saturated, oversaturated, just like, we don't know anything about each other, but we don't have to, because we can just keep gazing into each other's eyes and telling each other how right we are together. And it's like, fuck you. So I wanted one of them to die so the other could actually have something to fight for again, because that was another, little tangent. That was another thing. They kept talking about their grief and their loss with their parents and everything like that, but I didn't feel it once this season until we got to the finale. But the whole time they were talking about, like, he took everything from us. I'm like, you're sure not acting like it. And it's sure not written the way people talk when they actually do have everything ripped from them. I hate that you're all just kind of, you alluded to this, they're all kind of like fully recovered and fine. And I'm like, no, they either need to be damaged or not. And I understand people can be complex, but they're not. They're oversimplified. That's the problem. They need to be complex. So anyway, so I'm thinking either it would have been cool if, just because there's less to him at this point than the other is Devin. I feel like Jake, at least I cried because of something that he did. I don't know if I could be moved by anything Devin would do at this point. So let him die. Let Chucky kill him. Let there be consequences for your protagonists. Yeah. And do I want that more than I want? Yeah, I want that more. So people are probably going to be just
you never know.
Not since Tree's mom.
That's the thing. It's just like people might be on board. And I remember that while season 3 was airing, there was a lot of speculation that Devin was going to die, because there was, like, I guess there's going to be a big death. And I mean, I don't know what it turned out. Maybe the president or whatever. Like, ooh, big deal.
But yeah, when it happened, I was like, oh, he ate his face.
So it's
that's
maybe
good.
maybe he was supposed to, and then they changed their mind. So who knows? Maybe that's a thing. You might win. People might be like, I'm gonna.
Okay, so Devin Evans, for the reasons I gave, but I can't wait to hear people who are shocked by it.
Yeah. Devin Evans. Wow. All right. So it's what, Warren Price versus
Warren Price,
Devin Evans,
and Devin Evans.
Devin Evans. You can.
I never thought I would have said this. I was rooting for them. I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
You can vote on Patreon if you head over there, even if you are subscribing or not. I leave it open for everyone to participate. So, if you are voting elsewhere, throw an extra vote. Just get those numbers up higher. But while you're there, consider subscribing and supporting and getting all the bonuses, like the early episodes and the Cherry Picker After Darks. You can also vote on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod, and follow us while you're doing that, and on YouTube in the posts here. Again, if you are listening to us, head over there, subscribe. If you're watching us, you can also listen to us. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Edward, where can they find you on social media?
You said that all beautifully. I'm on predominantly just Instagram and Letterboxd these days. Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling. How about you, Zach Cherry?
You can find me on my main YouTube channel, Zach Cherry, ZACKCHERRY. There's a space in there too. Instagram at Retro Bitch Face. That's all one word. Twitter, Zach Cherry 8. I think the letterbox is just Zach Cherry. So yeah. What do we got going on next week?
It's the one with the sun'll come out
tomorrow.
Okay, it's Orphan.
Yes, but not the Annie kind. Just the
not Annie, not Little Orphan Esther. Annie, just Orphan.
Orphan.
Our cult favorite.
Orphan. Oh, Orphan. I mean, I guess this isn't really apply, but I was just thinking another thing that I actually did appreciate in season 3 that we completely forgot to talk about was old Chucky. By the way, just the great makeup effects on old Chucky, but also him sitting there and flipping through the TV and seeing the boy. Dead Silence and Megan. But he called it like Muthrigan. I don't know
Yeah.
how he said it. He didn't say it the way that we do. But
No,
he's
he
like,
didn't.
fuck you, Muthrigan, or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
I think that was
you
how
know.
he said it.
But I mean, Dead Silence, I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't have an opinion. But The Boy, that's a good movie. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining, Chucky. Come on. Anyway.
He's just jealous.
Yeah. So there you have it. We will see you next time for a regular episode with Orphan. But in the meantime, thank you for watching and listening to this very long episode. And we will be right back.